Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Coming at you from the Mike Vrabel is in the Bill Belichick Coaching Tree studio. And all brought to you by FanDuel. You're telling me, forget it. We can't carry off-air conversations on to the show here. We're talking best position units in the NFL today here, Sam.
Yeah.
It's also, let's do it again. Happy football week.
Right. We got
a
this
full
weird
slate.
There's this weird week where we had the Hall of Fame game. Football's back, only not really because there's another week before the next game, which is just it feels like a gap we need to fill.
There was a minute where I was like, oh, no, there's games all weekend. I got to be posted up and ready to go. And then I was like, oh, no, we got another week before I convey to Kelly. Hey,
right.
Thursday through Sunday. I'll see you later. Preseason's more stressful for us than the regular season.
It is. It
Keeping
really
up
is.
with everything.
It's because it's all spread out. Like this just constant stuff during the month of August.
I do love preseason week one. So we'll have. I don't know if we'll preview it necessarily. There's not much to preview other than like all the guys we want to see. We'll see, but we'll review it a week from today, next Monday. I do enjoy the first look at a lot of the quarterbacks and the rookies. So we will have that this week. Full slate of games.
I am kind of looking forward to the inevitability of when they sacrifice a preseason game to add the 18th regular season game that's coming down the pipe at some point. I suspect that will redress this thing of like 10% of starters, starting snaps. 10% of the snaps in preseason are taken by starters now. I suspect once that becomes 2 preseason games, that will become more like it used to be, right? And you'll actually see starters playing during this thing.
I think a big part of it's the joint practice, though.
Did I just flick something off?
I hope not. Testing.
That felt like it
Test
clicked.
your mic. Test your mic. There is a reason, though. I mean, the joint practices are a huge factor when it comes to where the starters are getting their reps. Oh, gosh. This thing's never on with volume. All right. You ready to get into this whole thing?
Yeah.
More programming notes really quick. We're at 9 a.m. here today, as you know, because you're all watching us live.
Yes.
9 a.m. Eastern, we make our return this Wednesday. Back to we'll do the full season slate. So we'll go 9 a.m. Wednesday, 9 a.m. Thursday. Now, in season, bookmark, remember, reminder, put the bell, do the thing. In season, starting week one, we'll be at 7 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah,
we go early.
Week one, we go early.
On Monday morning. So Monday at 7 a.m., and then it'll be Wednesday and Thursday, 9 a.m. You got to do the bell thing. You got to do the YouTube bell reminder. You got to hit subscribe. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers as well.
Yeah.
By the season, we're on our way, almost to 89,000 as you're listening to this. And so do all those things. Thumbs up, subscribe, bell, and be ready 3 days a week live. Plus, we're going to go live this week. You got to be subscribed. This is YouTube only, right? Instant reactions.
Yep.
Thursday night, we've got a couple rookie quarterbacks playing. Shadur instant analysis because the people want to hear it. So just be ready all throughout the weekend. Instant reactions throughout preseason week one. All right. The other part about this week, we're trying to do a little official offensive line rankings on Thursday with Brandon Thorne.
Yeah.
And have a few other guests.
Well, I don't know if he's ranking his. So he's done work with that Bleacher Report 1000 thing where they rank offensive linemen individually.
Oh, no, he's got his best offensive lines.
He's actually put the offensive lines out?
Yeah, he did that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
On the Substack. So we're going to give ours today.
Timely, too, because you've got, as Mohal says, Laramie Tunsil going down, as well as the never-ending stream of injuries in the NFL.
Yeah, we can hit on some of that news maybe a little bit later. All right, top 5 O-line. So we're going to go position group by position group. We have offensive linemen, receivers, backfields. I guess we're doing quarterbacks. It's on the list. I didn't want to do quarterback rankings.
Yeah, well, I mean, Eli suggested we bury it at the back end somewhere because it's a weird one where it's basically all the starting quarterback. But, there are some teams that have strength and depth in some way.
Yeah, I'm not going to look at the top 2, and it doesn't matter. We'll do front 7, secondary, and go, and then coaches. We got a little coaches list as well. So let's start with the best offensive lines. Again, we'll have Brandon Thorne giving his best offensive lines this Thursday. But you and I have come up with ours. I'll let you count down your 5. And then I'll count down my 5, and then we'll discuss.
Okay, 5, the Los Angeles Rams. This is assuming Alaric Jackson remains, upright and intact and not in trouble. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills. Number 3, the Indianapolis Colts. Number 2, the Denver Broncos. And then number 1, I believe the Philadelphia Eagles are still the strongest offensive line in the NFL, albeit down from their peak.
All right, so that's yours. Rams, Bills, Colts, Broncos, Eagles. I have crossover with 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Where I differ.
None in the same order, though, right?
No, none in the same order.
It's like Wordle.
Number
They're all
5,
yellow.
I've got the Los Angeles Chargers.
Wow.
As number 5. We have to put last year in the rearview mirror. We'll add commentary to this in a second, but I've got the Chargers at 5. I have the San Francisco 49ers at 4. I don't feel great about it, but we'll try to explain it. Niners at 4. Philadelphia Eagles I have at 3. Because they took a little step back last year. I have the Rams at 2. A lot of continuity there again if Alaric Jackson's off-field checks out. And then the Denver Broncos at number 1. I think in my list I've leaned a lot on the continuity play that the Eagles, Rams, and Broncos have, and the Niners as well. And then the Chargers thing, we can discuss. But on paper, right, they had a good offensive line 2 years ago when Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt were out there healthy. Now they're back. You have Tyler Biadasz there at center, and I'm trusting they'll figure it out at guard. Last year's debacle for the Chargers was injury-related, not talent-related, so I'm putting them in the top 5 here.
Yeah, I mean, in part. I think the Chargers question to me is more Mike McDaniel related than it is talent-wise. It's like, how much does Mike McDaniel just simply invalidate the need for an interior offensive line like the way he had in Miami? I mean, that never looked good on paper, and yet it was fine for his entire time. And even now, so it's like, you had this whole draft thing of, well, should they draft a guard high? They end up drafting Jake Slaughter. That's the sort of first interior offensive lineman move they've made. Then you have the whole, is he playing guard? Is he playing center for them? And now it's like the guy that may end up playing at guard for them is a nobody effectively relative to expectations. And on the one hand, it's like, well, that sort of highlights everybody's concern about the Jake Slaughter pick and not drafting an interior offensive lineman up to that point. But it might also be this idea of, it doesn't really matter who you put in there for Mike McDaniel. His offense effectively neutralizes the weakness of an interior offensive line. So
Branson Taylor, maybe the guy.
Yeah, I mean,
as a 6'6", 330-pound guard option for the Chargers.
Right. It's you're hearing like. Trevor Penning's out of the running. Trey Pipkins is out of the running. Like the guys that were sort of potential starters are dropping by the wayside. The point being, it's sort of TBD how those guys actually play within this offense, and it may end up looking a lot better than it would be on paper in any other offense.
I think one of the difficult things, I know we use the phrase creep back toward average a lot on the offensive line. The implication there being go back to the old Steelers offensive line that had the great Alejandro Villanueva as the left tackle. You would go across the board. It was like, this guy's solid. David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey. Yeah. But, he was solid plus. Pouncey was solid. Villanueva was solid. There were no stars. DeCastro people would argue it's Pouncey, but DeCastro may have been the guy. The point being, there were no weaknesses. That is, I think, a viable way of looking at offensive lines. However, I don't want to diminish the impact of stars. Trent Williams, we'll get to the Niners. Trent Williams does elevate the 49ers offensive line. Joe Alt does elevate the Chargers offensive line. Stars do have an impact on the O-line. So trying to balance what the individuals do, because we've seen that before too. Laramie Tunsil, who just got hurt with Washington, when he showed up to Houston a few years back, they go from one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines to one of the best. Just because of him stepping in there. So the stars, try to balance out. The stars do matter. And so I leaned a little bit away from creep back toward average. And I said, Slater, let's assume health. Alt, let's assume health. Biadasz is one of the more dependable centers in the league. That 3/5 is really strong, even though you might have some questions at guard. That's why I had the Chargers up there.
Yeah, I think if you sort of fold in the impact that McDaniel can make, I think the Chargers make a ton of sense. Like if they end up in an area where personnel-wise 3/5 of the line are in good shape, and then the other 2/5 are basically invalidated because of the system, then that's a good offensive line.
So who else did you want to discuss here in your?
Well, so the fifth team of mine was the Rams. You have the Rams on there higher, number 2. But either way, we both have the Rams as the top 5 O-line.
Yeah, I had them second. again, that they're going to have all 5 starters back. The offseason question from a team building perspective is they're all in the last year of their contract. I'm glad that Les mentioned that on our show last week, because I mentioned that
as
a lot during draft time.
Right.
When we suggested, hey, if Spencer Fano was there, would they take him? Would they take the best tackle available, take that long-term team-building play? I remember a little bit of pushback from a few Rams fans. Oh, we're not taking offensive line. They're all coming back. You don't know our roster.
Right.
I do know your roster. 4 out of 5 are UDFAs, and our friend Les Snead mentioned it last week in our interview.
That's the thing. Like we've been talking about this pick, the 13th overall pick, as kind of an A/B analysis between basically Mekhi Lemon or the quarterback or Ty Simpson, right? And Les brings up actually, the entire offensive line is a free agent next year. We kicked around the idea of, is there an offensive lineman that we want to take at 13, knowing that he's probably not starting this year, but it's next year's draft pick, right? Really interesting element of that, and reinforcement of the idea that these are the conversations teams are having. It's not necessarily just who helps us the most right now, right this second. It's what's the best pick for now, for the future. Is it quarterback? Is it offensive line? Really interesting nugget for him to bring up. But yeah, because the whole line is free agent next year. But for right now, they're all intact.
So they do have Alaric Jackson, who we mentioned is a question mark. We are in this weird world where there's a lot of players who had off-season incidents.
Yeah.
And there's been no ruling from the NFL on them. We don't know how it's going to play out. We have no idea if there are suspensions coming down or what the timing would be on those. But they have Alaric Jackson. Warren McClendon stepped in, did a really nice job for Rob Havenstein last year, who's recently retired. And then the interior trio for the Rams, Coleman Shelton, Steve Avila, and Kevin Dotson. Dotson's been one of the better guards in the NFL over these last couple of years. So a few teams on our lists are the continuity play, right? All 5 are returning.
They've got a bit of depth as well. If Jackson went down, that would be a problem. That's I think the area, the one position where they really don't have depth is left tackle. So that would be an issue if he copped a suspension from the NFL. Outside of that, though, it's a good offensive line and it's got some depth.
So let's just go through the rest of your list there. Bills at 4.
Yep.
I kept them off because of the David Edwards, losing David Edwards. I think if they brought him back,
that's a blow.
That puts them squarely in the top 5 and maybe even in the top 3. I feel contradictory saying one player has that much of an impact, but it does. It does, right?
Well, I mean, when you're ranking offensive linemen, it's changing 20% of the offensive line, right? And it's in certain areas, it's probably clearly making 20% of it worse. So you have to factor it into a fairly significant degree. I do think, though, it's even with him leaving, which is one of their stronger offensive linemen, and therefore being replaced by a guy, it's probably a downgrade, is my point. Even then, it still looks like a pretty solid offensive line. Now, part of that is conditioned by what you think Osiris Torrance is. They just gave him quite a lot of money for a guy who, in my opinion, has never even been average at the NFL level, which was curious to me. On the one hand, it's like, there is power to this continuity, and bringing back Osiris Torrance is probably better than trying to replace Osiris Torrance in a vacuum. But there's a point at which the cost of that becomes like the answer would flip, How much do you want to bring him back? Probably not as much as you're paying him.
Yeah, they were fringe top 5 for me in the list here. I'm curious to see where Brandon Thorne will have them, and we can ask him about Osiris Torrance. I think he's got a few more whiffs or losses than you would like, particularly in the run game. He's one of those power blockers, though. Like when it looks good, it is good. And I was an Osiris Torrance fan. I wanted all the numbers to be good on him. Some of the advanced stuff is not great, though.
Yeah, coming out, definitely. At the NFL level, less so. But this is so the Bills are an interesting side-by-side comparison with the Chargers, for example, because they're strong in the same areas and weak in the same areas, right? You've got Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins versus Slater and Alt. You would say the Chargers are better there, but it's strengths for both teams. McGovern versus Biadish, I would say the Bills are better at center, and then you've got the 2 guard spots, which are the main question marks for both teams, and the Bills are probably better at both of those, even though I don't love the Bills guards either. That's the weakness of that offensive line. I would say they're constructed very similarly, those 2 offensive lines.
All right, then you had the Colts at 3. Again, I considered them as well, in part because the whole right side showed, Matt Goncalves and the Iowa State Travis. Jalen Travis, the Iowa State monster right tackle, showed really well last year.
Yeah, I think that offensive line is really underrated. It's transition. They've done the rare thing, which is get yourself a pretty good starting five, and then have to sort of rebuild it once they age out, they move on. You let them walk for better contracts. They've sort of replenished this offensive line and rebuilt like the whole thing, really. I mean, Quentin Nelson's basically the only holdover from the last really good starting five offensive linemen they had. Bernard Ryman has come in and become a really good left tackle. Nelson obviously is still arguably the best guard in the NFL. And then that trio on the right side from Bordellini at center, Ryan Kelly's, successor, Goncalves and Jalen Travis, like they've shown they're capable of high-end play as well. And this is an offensive line protecting whichever quarterback is not particularly offensive line friendly. Daniel Jones, Richardson, Riley Leonard, none of those guys are making an offensive line look better by the way they play the game. So I think you have to sort of factor that in as well if you're looking at pressure rates or all those kinds of things. This is an offensive line generally being stressed by the quarterback situation.
This exercise, Sam, do you feel like, again, I want to ask Brandon on Thursday, do you feel like the O-lines are a little bit better now than doing this exercise? Because we've ranked top 32 offensive lines for years now. Do they feel a little bit better, or are teams doing it better, or did we just lean into at the top here? Rams have 5 starters back. Bills have 4 out of 5. Colts have all 5. Broncos have all 5. A lot of teams are bringing back the same group. Feels a little bit stronger in the top 10, as in there's more teams here, not so much the high end.
That's the thing. I think some teams have understood, agreed upon our strategy of, I think the Bills are maybe the first team to really embrace this. Like, let's not necessarily shoot for superstars all over the offensive line. Let's just try and get 5 guys that don't suck. I think the Bills may have been the first team to really focus on that as a strategy. And I think now more teams are, and I think they've succeeded at that better. So I don't know that the overall level of offensive lines is necessarily better than it's been in the past, but I think more teams have successfully found 5 guys that aren't problems.
Okay, so you have the Broncos at 2. I have them at 1. I'll give you a chance to defend the Broncos, and I'll explain why I have them as the top O-line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good offensive line. Garrett Bowles in particular is probably one of the more underrated offensive linemen in the NFL now. He's just developed into a really, really good kind of top tier left tackle. You've got Quinn Miners as well of tree blocking fame, but I mean he's become a guy who's arguably arguably the best right guard in the NFL as well. So you've got 2 guys in that offensive line that are top 5 at their position. That's a really good starting point. And then the other 3 are in that solid category. McGlinchey, has got a track record of being pretty good. And then the other 2, Ben Powers and Luke Wattenberg, are fine.
Yeah, go back to Sean Payton. Right when he shows up, they spend all this money on Ben Powers, all this money on Mike McGlinchey. Those are the first 2 big moves that the Broncos that they made. And other than Lloyd Cushenberry for Luke Wattenberg over the last few years at center, it's been 4 out of 5 intact. So continuity, good players. And I would say Bowles is on the higher end, as you said. Miners, you could argue him as one of the top 3 to 5 guard in the NFL. McGlinchey's been dependable for quite a while, and they're all making and they paid for this, right? They're all
sure.
20 million plus, 18 million, 17 million. They paid for this as well. So that's why I had the Broncos at number 1. Not only the multi-year continuity, but productivity. We'll see what they can do in the run game. I could see Broncos fans maybe questioning, hey, we haven't been good enough in the run game. And I think that's a factor when you look at run blocking versus pass blocking. It all matters. This has been a very good pass blocking unit, in addition to Bo Nix's his ability to get the ball out and have a pretty low sack rate. So I had the Broncos at number 1. You had the Eagles at number 1, and I think I just dinged them a little bit, put them at 3, because they didn't run the ball effectively last year, and I thought they showed a little bit of weakness on the interior.
Yeah, they didn't, but the personnel is basically the same from when they did. So I still feel like they can run the ball at that level. They just didn't last season. So I'm kind of giving the Eagles a bit of a break because I think we've seen better from them. A big, I think, variable in this offensive line is whether Landon Dickerson can actually get back to being 100% healthy, or if his injuries have become a kind of chronic, long-term, permanent change in his ability and his status. There's Lane Johnson has basically already announced that this is his last go-around, that this is the last dance for Lane Johnson, one of the best offensive linemen of his generation at right tackle. I sort of feel like that will result in a very good year from him. He wants to go out in a high, like really, really dominate his final season. So that, again, puts them in the world of like two awesome tackles, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. That might be the best tackle tandem in the NFL if they're both firing on all cylinders. If Dickerson gets back to being this monster run blocker, and maybe whether or not he can just bounce back to that level of health, period, or whether he also feels like it's his last year injury-wise and he wants to go out and just, lay it all on the line one last time and let's go, I think he can be a very good player. And then Jurgens and Tyler Steen are both good to solid. So I just think that the overall level of that edges Denver slightly.
Yeah, Dickerson's only 6 years into his career, but dealt with so many injuries. Yeah. Last year at this time, we were trying to figure out, okay, remember Mekhi Becton was their starting guard on the Super Bowl winning team in 2024. Tyler Steen was the guy that they pegged as, okay, he's going to be the replacement. He had a really nice season. Yep. So that's maybe part of my hesitancy, though, is Jeff Stoutland no longer there, too. So you lose Stoutland over in Philadelphia. How much is that going to be a factor? It's a real interesting time on the offensive line for the Eagles, because as long as you and I have been covering the NFL, over a decade here, we would probably rank the Eagles offensive line top 5.
Yeah.
I would say maybe not every season, but pretty close.
Right.
I mean, going back to the Carson Wentz days, going back to even when Chip Kelly was there. I mean, way back. If you were ranking offensive lines, the Eagles, at least in the last 10 years, always in the top 5. It has been an organizational demand, right? That is what they care about. They draft and develop offensive linemen, and the next 2 years are going to be real interesting if there's an issue with Dickerson long term, certainly with Lane Johnson getting a little bit older, plus Stoutland, not being the guy there anymore.
Yeah, the Stoutland thing is huge because you just don't know what kind of impact that's going to have short and long term. But personnel-wise, I think this group has shown and has a track record of being really good. They've also got as much depth as pretty much anybody. Again, pretty much nobody has like high quality depth when it comes to backup offensive linemen. But, you've got guys that they drafted like Markel Bell. You've got Fred Johnson. You've got these sort of veteran players that have played a lot of football, even if most of it's not that great. Fred Johnson, Michael Jordan.
You know who else they have?
I do. The great Willie Lampkin.
That's right.
Short hero, who has been dominating so much they bumped him up the depth chart. Now they only bumped him up to second string, but still, second string's better than third string. It means the arrow's pointing up, the graph's going in the right direction. Little Willie Lampkin, little in height, wide, is dominating, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't look like it's going to look for other people because he's 5'11".
I was so sad when he got hurt last year. I can't wait to watch him play. That might be my most exciting player to watch this week.
I mean, just paint a picture in your head, right? This idea that...
Do we have the photo somewhere?
that Landon Dickerson, he's got one more year left before the body just gives out, right? He lays it all on the line, and then next year, Willie Lampkin steps into the left guard role. Just beautiful. Dominates. 5'11", both tall and wide, and then just continues to truck. I
do know our friend Brandon Thorne, also a big Willie Lampkin fan, so we'll hopefully bring him up again on Thursday. The full offensive line rankings will come out Thursday with Brandon. We'll get his take, but those are ours so far. All right, check the mic. It's brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, all my friends, you think your nose hitting a homer today? Well, FanDuel's giving you a chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Joining the action's easy. You just make your free pick on who's hitting a home run in their game, and if you're right, you'll get a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. You have nothing to lose and a lot to gain. And don't forget, you can make a free pick every day during the MLB season. I've got two teams I kind of root for, Sam. We get the Reds. They're making a little bit of a play. The Red Sox from my old Boston days. They're like 27-4 in their last 31 games. That's crazy for baseball, by the way. So you got to play the odds here, right? You find the guys that are hot, ballpark adjustments. You can be smart when we're trying to figure out who's hitting dingers every single day here. It's just another reason why FanDuel is the home for home runs. So, you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com/33rd. That's FanDuel.com/33rd to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. Must be 21 plus in select states. For Kansas and affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, 18 plus in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. No purchase necessary. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens, and restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-MY-RESET, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Call 1-877-770-7867 in Louisiana. All right, what's next on our list here? Best receiving units in the NFL. Let's do your top 5. Countdown.
Yeah, we don't agree on this one a lot. We've got the top 2 are the
I'm
same.
all over the place with this, man. I don't know.
So, receivers as opposed to wide receivers. So, you're factoring in pass-catching tight ends. You're factoring in running backs out of the backfield. So, I have the Denver Broncos as my number 5 team. The Minnesota Vikings, number 4. The Houston Texans, number 3. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, number 2. And the Dallas Cowboys, number 1.
I feel like you used my data on the Texans there. I wanted to put the Texans there. But I didn't.
Coward.
I didn't. Because there's still some unknowns. I'll talk about it in a second. All right, my top 5. We do differ. I've got the New England Patriots, number 5.
Wow.
Maybe they should be higher.
What?
Yeah. Detroit Lions, number 4. Seattle Seahawks, number 3. Dallas Cowboys, number 2. Cincinnati Bengals, number 1. So you're right. We both have the same top 2. I was flip-flopping criteria all over the place when it comes to this. I think it's similar, right? It could be a top 8 or 9.
Yeah.
That you feel pretty good about that could be in the top 5.
I mean, it's the way we've constructed these sort of shows you how it breaks down. It's like Dallas and the Bengals are 1-2, and then the next sort of tranche of teams I think are fairly closely grouped.
The age-old. So I mentioned this with the offensive line. You know, how much does the one star matter? How much does one Joe Alt or one Laramie Tunsil matter? It matters way more at receiver. And again, you know, we've been doing this for quite a while, and we've had to make those listicles as we name your top receivers and write an article about it and, you know, make it clickbaity. No, that was not one of the rules. But we would always debate, like, what if you only had one-star receiver? You know, one-star receiver can literally bump your group up 10 spots. One-star offensive lineman probably can't.
Yeah.
One of the teams I should have thought more about was Washington, though, because they just added Stephon Diggs. And that one wide receiver, too, to complement Terry McLaurin. You know, if you were ranking 1 through 32, maybe they were 25th with McLaurin, and now they're 15th with Diggs, or they're 10th with Diggs. It has that big of an impact. So the way that you want to weigh these things, does the top 4 to 5 pass catchers matter? How much do the top 2 have an impact? I think you and I both leaned on at least the top 2. I know you like Flournoy and everybody in Dallas, but like the top 2 are carrying the weight in Dallas. The top 2 are carrying the weight in Cincinnati as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I think let's leave those guys to the end.
Okay, go ahead. Go through your 5. Start with the Broncos.
I think unquestionably 1-2, just in whichever order you want to do it. Once Denver added Jalen Waddle, I think that became a really, really good-looking wide receiver core. You've got Waddle and Sutton as your 1-2, who I think are A, a very good duo, and B, well-balanced, complementary. But then now 3-4-5 becomes Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, who's been dominating camp as well. And again, those guys can do a little bit of everything. Mims for the gimmick stuff, in addition to being a deep threat, in addition to being a return man. Troy Franklin's got, vertical ability. Pat Bryant is a bigger body guy. Like, that's a really nice group. Their weakness is tight end, right? Where it's still sort of Evan Engram, Adam. Like, it's not awful, but in this world where everybody's trying to find tight ends, Denver's is a relative weakness compared to that group, even with the drafting of Justin Jolly.
Yeah, I mean, I could buy Denver. I kept them off the list. I mean, I don't know if it's because I kept them and Houston off the list because they have slightly unproven players that I really like. Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. And I know they're the 3, 4, 5 in Denver, which is a good place to be. Like, right. I get it. I mean, I've been raving about Denver's roster this entire offseason. So Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, I know, are part of the depth piece here. Mm-hmm. But Jalen Waddle and Cortland Sutton are really good as the 1-2. And you mentioned Pat Bryant had a nice rookie season. You're right. I mean, that's loaded. And the other team, Houston, go through the rest of your list. I'll explain my Houston reasoning.
Well, okay, Minnesota next.
I hate leaving Minnesota off my list.
Right.
Too.
Look, Justin Jefferson by himself. I saw some rankings in the offseason sometime where like the Vikings were, I can't remember where they were, either nowhere on a top 10 list of receivers or they were like actively somewhere towards the bottom of the NFL on a list. And it's like Justin Jefferson on his own invalidates that, right? Like he's so good by himself.
You still have that top 3-ish type of
Yeah.
receiver.
And so you've got Justin Jefferson, you still have Jordan Addison, who's very good. You added Juwan Jennings to that, who's a really good receiver, and I think complementary to both those guys. Hawkinson, we'll see what he's got left in the tank. Aaron Jones is still good as a receiver out of the backfield. It's still a pretty damn good receiving room.
It is good. Even if you suggest, Hawkinson might be on the downswing of his career at tight end, it is tough to look at. I mean, if you're doing things analytically, Jefferson's production obviously took a hit.
Sure. And
it is tough to separate that from the quarterback play sometimes. I think Addison's inconsistency, and maybe there's a piece of me thinking about, is he dependable enough? But Juwan Jennings being added to that group as the third down chain moving type, that is an unbelievable trio potentially for the Vikings, right? Jefferson at his best, Addison at his best, add in Juwan Jennings. Hawkinson's still solid, right? He's still dependable. It is a good group.
I don't like the depth as much as some of these other groups, but the top three, I think, is still an elite level group. I mean, again, Jefferson is still as good as any wide receiver in the NFL, even though his production dipped, even though it might dip again this year because the quarterback situation still doesn't look good. He's still awesome.
I do regret not having the Vikings on the list. I don't know who I'll make my case for the other teams, though.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know who I'm replacing. All right, so that's your fourth. Third is the Texans for you.
Yeah. I think me and Matt Harmon are both in the category of thinking that Nico Collins is maybe the most underrated receiver in the NFL because even though people rate him as very good, people don't put him in the Jamar Chase, JSN, Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson bucket. I think he absolutely belongs in that category. I think, again, he's a guy who has an argument to be the best wide receiver in the NFL along with all those other guys, and nobody ever makes it. He's that good. He's obviously their number one. Then you've got Jaden Higgins, who we talked about as a potential breakout guy this year and somebody who's getting a ton of training camp hype. The other two Iowa State receivers, the potential return of Tank Dell. We'll see what he gets or what he can bring back. Dalton Schultz at tight end is good. They added Foster Moreau. maybe reached for a Marlon Klein in the draft, but they've added weapons at tight end, and then Woody Marks I think is a good receiver out of the backfield as well. So this one is more unproven than some of the others, but I do think the depth is potentially sick.
Yeah, I mean I can buy it because Nico is a legit number one. I'm a big Jaden Higgins fan, Jalen Noel fan. I guess I just said let's prove it one more time. My numbers love it because love Higgins as a draft prospect, what Nico Collins can do, Dalton Schultz, who you mentioned as a dependable tight end. It is a good group.
I think that one's more fragile than my other ones.
It is.
I could see that.
If Tank Dell's back, and if Higgins is what I hope he is, and if Noel's the deep threat that I think he can be, there's some what ifs there.
Yeah, the potential is there for that group to be spectacular, but I could also see it not materializing.
All right, before we talk Bengals and Cowboys, let me go through my 3 through 5, and then we'll talk about the two we agreed about in the top two. So I had the Patriots at 5. And you have A.J. Brown coming in, and no matter what you think about what he did last year, was he a little bit worse last year? Absolutely. A couple passes that he should have caught. Maybe he didn't separate as well, but it's not like you can't find his 10 to 15 best catches and say he still wins at the catch point, right? He still knows how to shield his body. He's going to make big plays for the Patriots. I still think A.J. Brown has plenty left. I think Romeo Doubs coming in as a perfect number 2. He never got to just be the number 2 complementary piece that he is in Green Bay. Maybe a little bit last year as Christian Watson emerged, but that's where Doubs shines, right? You want all the attention on A.J. Brown, we'll win some one-on-ones, we'll be in the right place at the right time. Keyshawn Boutte is still on the roster, tearing up training camp right now. He was the big play threat for Drake May last year. Plus you have some other depth pieces in there still on the roster for New England, right? All they did was lose Stephon Diggs and add A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs from one of the best offenses. And they just this morning re-signed Hunter Henry for a couple more years, a good tight end as well. So I think the Patriots, I've got them on a couple of these lists here where I don't even know at the end of last year if you would have had them on these lists. You know, the receivers were fine.
Yeah.
Their secondary is fine, but I think another year of we'll talk about the secondary, but another, these additions at receiver. So I put them at 5. Lions, because we need to give Lions fans some love here. It's the high end potential of a couple players, right? Amon-Ra, as we know, maybe the best slot receiver in the entire NFL. Jameson Williams, who I think showed more consistency last year, always has that big play potential. And you have Sam Laporta. Don't forget Sam Laporta, banged up last year. So you've got that trio is carrying the weight for the Lions for me, but it's 3 different skill sets, but just an incredible foundation. And then the only question is, okay, Isaac Tesla, some more consistency, right? He's going to make this one spectacular catch per week. Can we do a little bit more? They've got the great Greg Dortch coming in. Doesn't matter how many good pieces are around Greg Dortch. That dude's just going to make plays. I think the Lions get slept on a little bit when it comes to pass catchers. Slept on by you because they're not in your top 5.
Yeah, and, Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield is a good receiver as well.
I should count Gibbs. You're right.
I do like the Lions. They're like the Texans, the Broncos for you. It's like I like the Lions, and I kind of want to put them in the top 5, but I can't figure out who I would dump to put them in there.
And then I had the Seahawks at 3. And it's like, what do you do with the Seahawks? JSN, arguably the best receiver in the NFL last year, between him and Puka Nacua. I mean, by the way, you could argue the Rams. It depends on what you think about Devontae Adams. They have all those tight ends, but Devontae at this point in his career is probably the one thing making you sour on the Rams. But you have JSN, who, if you told me last year at this time, was going to be an incredible vertical threat and the most productive receiver in the NFL last year, I'd say, I'm a big JSN fan. But that's a wild prediction, and that's what he was.
Also, like the most one-man band in the NFL.
Right.
I mean, like the fact that it's weird because on the one hand you've got this sort of dynamic where JSN was putting up numbers that look like the 1940s in terms of he's the only target for this offense, but he isn't. I mean, they actually do have other threats. It's just they were still giving him that much of an opportunity because he's that good. But, even let's park Cooper Kupp for the minute in terms of a declining force, kind of the way Devontae Adams is for the Rams. But Rashid Shaheed is a very good player. Torrey Horton Flash is a rookie. A.J. Barner is a very good tight end. Jadarian Price, the rookie, obviously it's early to be counting on him at all, but Hard Knocks episode 1, the reports out of camp is like nobody's covered this guy yet up until he got hurt and missed some time. I mean, that could be a very good group. It just remains to be seen how much is still going to be like 45% target share JSN.
Yeah, he was just so good. I think that legitimate wide receiver 1, top 3 receiver potential of JSN, Rashid Shaheed's speed, Cooper Kupp can still play well enough at this time. Torrey Horton, and then Jake Bobo's the best wide receiver 5 in the NFL. Okay. So you can't forget about that. Plus Elijah Arroyo, moving around the formation. So I gave Seattle the nod here. Maybe I'm just soft, man. There's like 8 or 10 that could have been in the top 5.
No, there is. There's a lot.
I chose Seattle to be 3rd here.
Yep.
And then we get to the top 2, Dallas and Cincinnati. I'll let you make the case for Dallas as number 1. I had Cincinnati as number 1. But as I mentioned, the 1-2 punch of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in Dallas, or Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the biggest players for these rankings.
Yeah, obviously, each one of these teams has 2 very, very high-end receivers. Each one of these teams, they're one of the few teams in the NFL where their number 2 could be a number 1 for most teams and still be in pretty good shape. And the Bengals in particular have shown that when Jamar Chase does miss games, T. Higgins typically steps up and looks like a number 1. The Cowboys have done it in a different way where their number 2 was a number 1 somewhere else before coming in anyway. So that makes sense. I give them a boost over the Bengals because I think, number 1, Ryan Flanoy is significantly better than anybody else on the Bengals roster in terms of receiver help. And I think Jake Ferguson is a better tight end than Mike Gesicki as well. Now, maybe if you're just saying receivers, doesn't matter that Mike Gesicki doesn't block, and maybe that evens it. But I think Flournoy in particular would be the reason that I put Dallas over Cincinnati. Now, Colby Young has been dominating in Bengals camp, and if he becomes the 3 that Princeton has never really been, or was supposed to become and didn't.
He kind of was 2 years ago. He had some.
Yeah,
he was inconsistent.
But had a really bad year
drops.
last year. Like if he doesn't bounce back, or if Colby Young becomes that guy, maybe that changes. But I think in order to put the Bengals over Dallas, you have to either think that Jamar Chase is so much better than either CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, and you could make that argument, or you have to really be sleeping on Ryan Flournoy, in my opinion, to make that math work.
And you didn't even cite MVS being there, Marcos Valdez-Scantling, Jonathan Mingo, Cavante Turpin.
Mingo's made at least 2 plays in training camp this year.
Yes. Since I tweeted you a week and a half ago, I haven't heard much about Mingo. But
so it's at least 2. It may be more, but I haven't seen evidence of more than that.
I would say the fairest criticism of me putting the Bengals at 1 is the depth. I think that's a strong case for Dallas. I think, again, Chase, you could argue, is the best 1, the actual best receiver in the NFL, and Higgins is like fringe top 10 to 15. I mean, that's where I would say that Chase Higgins is better than CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I do like Gesicki as a receiving tight end. Drew Sample's still kicking around there, by the way. But yeah, like the Bengals could use a guy like Jermaine Burton, as the true wide receiver 3. That's what they really need. Yeah, we'll see if Colby Young, or I always liked Mitchell Tinsley.
Yeah, he always has a good camp.
But it's
I'm also curious.
Fair to question the wide receiver 3 spot. Josivach has been better in his career than he was last year, though. So that's what I'm banking.
Sure. I'm also now an Eric All fan because of the story that emerged this offseason, which is in working his way back from injury, he knew it was go time when he got run over by a truck in Greece, I think, and walked away from it. Like, that feels like I'm in football shape. If I can walk away from getting hit by a car, it's time for training camp. So that's pure football guy right there.
That's legit football guy. Had to tag PFT on that one.
And also,
he saw it.
Yeah, says something about the nature of NFL football. If being hit and being in a road traffic accident immediately reminds you of your job.
I'm ready to go. I'm in football shape.
Mm-hmm.
Got hit by a car. All right, man. The good group of pass catchers. Let us know your favorite pass catching group in the NFL. All right, I'm excited for preseason football.
Yeah.
Here, Sam. I'm excited for preseason football. I'm excited for getting tickets to preseason football, to college football. That's why I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek. Huge shout out. Over 35 million downloads. SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. MLB is in full swing. College football starting back up. The NFL, NBA seasons right around the corner. I will at least expose this in the same calendar year. I'm going to see Third Eye Blind in a few weeks.
Wow.
In Cincinnati. In the same calendar year, I will have seen Third Eye Blind, Counting Crows at the Super Bowl, and little-known Canadian band Our Lady Peace, if anybody remembers them.
You are just reliving the early 2000s.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And this is like, you could do this too, right through SeatGeek. You want to relive your childhood? Boom. Let's see who's in concert. Go get some great deals.
Because they're all touring again.
They're all touring again. They're all coming back. I just realized this the other day as we go to see Third Eye Blind and relive, 1999 once again. So SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10. So you're getting a good deal. You just look for green dots. Green means good. Red means bad. And plus, every ticket's backed by their buyer guarantee. I wonder if they would have red for the new Bills seats that are all obstructed view.
Not all of them. There's only a couple of them, and apparently those ones weren't even for sale. So
those would be red.
People need to chill.
Oh, okay, good.
Now,
I can't believe people over-exaggerated stuff.
You could argue why did they build a stadium with obstructed view seats in the first place, but still.
But the point is, SeatGeek will make sure that you know if it's a good deal. And we got a code for you guys. Here we go. You can use the code MIC10, MIC10, 10% off your next set of tickets over at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code MIC10, MIC10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. All right, man, let's go to top backfields in the NFL. Give me your top 5.
Okay, my top 5. Number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 4, the Miami Dolphins. Number 3, the Los Angeles Rams. Number 2, the Arizona Cardinals. The roster may stink, but the backfield doesn't. And then number 1, the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, I had the same top 2, Cardinals and Falcons.
Okay.
We'll explain in a minute. So you had Ravens, Dolphins, Rams.
Yeah.
I had the Bills at 5.
Okay.
The Lions again at 4. I'm letting the stars do the work
here.
Yeah. Ravens at 3.
And you had the Ravens.
And you had them at 5.
Yeah.
So, you've got –
Okay.
So I'm letting the stars carry the Bills with James Cook, the Lions with Jahmyr Gibbs, and then the Ravens with Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough to balance out the star power versus the depth when it comes to backfields, though.
Yeah, it is. I'm being kind of consistent throughout my offseason. I love Devon Achane.
You've been
more than other
very
people.
Consistent with that.
He's so good.
Appreciate you for that.
So that's part of why Miami is really high as well. But I think they have depth as well. As much as this is where I think the Mike McDaniel thing doesn't necessarily help. Like, his offense is obviously amazing, both in terms of creativity, how it works, and hiding offensive linemen. However, at some point, you're going to need your interior offensive linemen to dominate and open up some gaps, and they might not be as good at that as other people. But I kind of like Ollie Gordon as a running back as well. Jalen Wright, I think, still has some talent. So there's some priors there in that Jalen Wright I liked coming out, and Ollie Gordon I've liked since coming out, and Devon Achane is amazing. So that trio together I think is good.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. And we're not incorporating quarterback runs here or anything like that. So you've got the Dolphins at 5, Ravens 4. You have the Dolphins at 4. The Ravens you had at 5. I had them at 3.
And then the Rams is the other one that you didn't have, right?
Yeah,
and that's interesting because it's not necessarily one star, but I think their 1-2 punch is really good. Kyron Williams and Blake Corum is a great duo.
Yeah, I had them just outside the top 5. Really like Kyron Williams. Blake Corum is like his clone, right? As we've talked about, maybe not as good, but similar style player.
But really,
it is a good 1-2
showed
punch.
Last year that he is, a really good back in his own right. I think year 1 it was like, maybe the hype for him coming out was a little bit misplaced, and then year 2 you saw him really look a lot more like Blake Corum.
For the Ravens to be at 3 for me and 5 for you, banking on Derrick Henry to have another big season, obviously, but I think Justice Hill has done a nice job as a change of pace throughout the years. Plus, they have the owner's selection, Steve Bisciotti's own 5th-round pick, Adam Randall. There, how could you doubt ownership?
Who, if he nails it, becomes immediately the best personnel man in the NFL, 1-for-1, 100% strike rate.
Everyone else's strike rate's in the 40s,
right?
And he's going to be 1,000 or 0. He's either the best or the worst.
Yeah,
based off one guy,
a lot on the line.
Former wide receiver Adam Randall converted to running back last year at Clemson, and that was the pick. My other 2 teams that were worth noting here. So I had the Bills at 5.
Yep.
I mean,
James Cook.
James Cook is the guy, but I like Ray Davis. I think as well as the different style. Plus, I was there when Ray Davis went for 300 yards at Kentucky. That's a vote of confidence for James Cook. For the Lions,
they definitely would have been there before Montgomery.
Yeah, so in my head when I was weighing this, if you had David Montgomery there, they're battling for number 1, right? Yeah. I don't think Isaiah Pacheco's bad as the backup, and he's got that ridiculous, hard charging running style, which I think will be a nice compliment to Gibbs. But Gibbs is, as a star there is.
I mean, he now needs to be the Backfield basically.
Yeah, and they put more on him last year as well. And I think he showed well in that situation. So Pacheco is the change of pace. I think certainly knocks them down a peg, but Gibbs is still carrying the way there. So I had the Lions at 4. If I keep picking the Lions, not only will the fans be happy with us, but with their easy schedule, I might look good at the end of the year too. Keep ranking the Lions. And then, why are the Cardinals at 2? Well, they already had a good backfield and then drafted Jeremiah Love at 3. Yeah.
It's the one area that's sort of fairly uncontroversially awesome from that depth chart. They already had, James Conner. Okay, he's old and hurt potentially, but James Conner is a very good running back. They added Tyler Algier to James Conner, so that's 2 good running backs. And then you add Jeremiah Love, who, depending on how high you are on him, is one of the generational running backs come along in the last 10 years. Like that, it doesn't get better than that. That's basically as good as you can manage from a backfield.
Yeah, it's the strength of the team. With Carson Beck throwing no looks in practice and everything now, I mean, Cardinals ready to make a move. Preseason hype here. We got to record all of our preseason hype every year.
And yet somehow you've put the Atlanta Falcons ahead of Arizona.
Yeah, Bijan. Well, I'm being consistent, too. I had Bijan as the top running back in the NFL this offseason, and they added the second B-Rob, Brian Robinson. Yeah. I think he'll be a Tyler Algier-like complement. If they still had Algier, by the way, Algier's just always part of the best backfields. Maybe he's the X factor here. I think Algier is right there with Brian, maybe better than Brian Robinson, but that's still a nice, power type complement to Bijan. But Bijan's RB1 for me, and that's why the Falcons are first.
I think it basically it's what you think. It's where you believe the most likely outcome for Jeremiah Love is. If Jeremiah Love is anything like he's supposed to be, let's say he's a top 5 running back right out of the gate. If he's a top 5 running back, the Cardinals have the best backfield in the NFL, I think, fairly inarguably. If he's lower than that, and and a bunch of these guys, Bijan, etc., are better than him, well, then they may not have.
All right, so that's backfield. Embrace debate. Let us know in the chat. Who's got the best backfield?
No, Embrace debate's gone now. They're killing it. ESPN's done with Embrace debate.
We're on to Savannah Bananas?
No, we're just on to whatever the business model is of just pay 3 people all of the money.
Yes, and play a lot of Savannah Bananas games.
Sure.
I need to know from the chat if they're Savannah Bananas fans. Because my kids kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was like a...
One guy I saw made a catch where the ball popped up.
That was an incredible
and
catch.
And just sort of flipped himself around and caught it with a sort of weird...
It was an incredible catch yesterday. Very impressive. They do impressive stuff. It did feel a little like being at the game at the stadium. Felt like being in a real life TikTok. There's just stuff being thrown at you at all times. There's no breaks. There's just stuff. Entertainment. Wow, entertainment.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Like the baseball was kind of like that. It's like this sport's so bad, you need to break it up by like a sing-song.
Well, that was Jesse's thought. Jesse Cole, founder of the Savannah Bananas, former teammate of mine, by the way, 2003 Mill City All-American.
Yeah.
So he did this because, he couldn't get anybody to go to the game. I think it's a little disrespectful to the game.
It is, but it's fairly disrespectful. It's like your game sucks.
Is fine. The game is fine.
We've had to TikTokify this sport because it's
Baseball's
so bad.
Fine.
You don't see that happening in other
sports.
I was about to say,
of baseball.
You don't see that happening in other sports, but I suppose the Harlem Globetrotters, et cetera, suggest you maybe do.
It's happened in every sport. In football, they're like, let's do flags. Let's lose the trenches. Let's do flags.
Well, that's
Everybody's
different. That's not the TikTokification of the sport. That's you can't get
in
the head playing this way.
It is. It's like, nobody wants to watch the run game.
No, it's not. That's like that's hitting people in the head is inevitable playing the real version. So let's try and make it safe in a different version.
Let's save this discussion for later, perhaps. We're going to go to the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll circle back on quarterbacks as well. We're going to circle back. Parking lot these discussions. We'll circle back, land the plane later. We should do a game where how many Gerstelisms can I drop into a show? No one's going to catch that. Best front sevens. We're actually ahead of schedule. No, we're not because I skipped something.
There's no way we're ahead of schedule.
No, it's because I skipped a whole section. Will Hagel's on the production here. Producer Will is back for one day. Working smoothly here as well. Appreciate Will. Best front sevens in the NFL. Give us your top 5.
Number 5, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. Number 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 2, the Los Angeles Rams. And then number 1, the Houston Texans. Now, I'm going to caveat my Rams thing, which is I am assuming Aaron Donald plays football for this team this year.
Oh, you're assuming Donald plays and you put them at 2?
Correct.
I have him at 2 without Donald. And if he comes back, he's number 1 for me.
I don't know what he is when he comes back. I mean,
I know. Les told us on the show last week. Les was here last week, and not enough of you people clicked on the video to hear what we said with Les Snead. You should all go back and watch it. He said if Donald comes back, it's Aaron Donald.
Yeah. Right. I mean, he would say that, though, with the greatest respect to Les. I'm not sure that he would.
You think our friend Les Snead would join the show and lie to us?
Not lie. I'm just saying he's personally invested in the answer to that being the one he gave, right? If Aaron Donald comes back and he's just solid, why would he think that way?
He hasn't been solid since ever.
Right. But he's now 35 and hasn't played football in a couple years.
He'll be fine. I'd put them at 1. My top 5. Do we have all the same? I have one different team than you. No, we have all the same teams.
That's
same
the
teams.
First time we've agreed.
Same teams reshuffled.
Yeah.
I get the Steelers at 5, Eagles at 4, Seahawks at 3, Rams at 2, Texans at 1.
Yeah.
That's without Donald.
Right.
With Donald. With Donald, they're at
Number
1.
Yeah.
No offense to the Houston Texans. Big Texans fan this offseason.
Sounds like some offense. You disrespecting the Texans. Straight disrespect.
Well, a Hall of Famer coming back to an already number 2 defensive front. That's the thing. Hall of Famer coming back. Even if Donald is solid and he's not elite, there's a case for the Rams at 1.
Yeah.
Let's go. Discuss Eagles at 5. This is a drop-off from where they've been in the past.
It is, but so number 1, it's front 7 as opposed to defensive line, just because I didn't want to
combine. Yeah, we did combine front 7 here.
I decided that was a better way of doing it because I just didn't want to rank linebacker units because it's
no one cares about linebacker.
Well,
units.
A, nobody cares, and B, some teams are playing like dime defense, and there's like one linebacker, and some teams are playing base, more than other teams, and they're playing 3 of them the whole time. It's just a dumb thing to be comparing these days. So I think you almost have to lump it in to a front 7. And if you do, the Eagles get stronger. So number 1, their defensive line is still in pretty good shape. I mean, they added Jonathan Grenard, remember, who's a very good player, to this trio, I guess, of interior defensive tackles: Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Mauro Ajomo, who you hate. Alex Hunt is good. Nolan Smith has been, disappointing relative to expectations, but it's still good. A.J. Epinesa is there. But Zach Bond, Jihad Campbell at the linebacker level, I think, really enhanced that group.
It's like I got to dig up Mauro Ajomo's surplus value and his my draft score on him.
It doesn't matter because you spent an entire offseason basically saying how they were going to stink because Milton
No,
Williams
I said
left.
he's an unknown. It's just like I'm hedging, just like I am with Jaden Higgins and Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims. I know they're going to be great. You just got to hedge a little bit just in case. In case. They just locked up Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, so they're good. They're good at defensive tackle. They've got Mauro Ajomo. Maybe he should have made. How about this? He should have made the Jordan Davis money. How about that? Maybe he will.
Okay.
So I really like their defensive tackles. It's just the annual exercise. Let's just read off all of the defensive linemen that the Eagles have. Jonathan Grenard, Nolan Smith, Arnold Ebiketie, who's maybe the best number 3.
I mean,
Jalix Hunt.
Grenard's not there right now. He's on the PUP list, but,
I'm assuming he's going to play football.
He's on the PUP list, so he'll miss some time. But, he's going to be a part of this team this year.
And then you just keep going. A.J. Epinesa, Keyshawn James Newby. I can't wait to see all the Eagles. Can't wait to see him in the preseason. He's going to dominate as a pass rusher in the preseason. You watch. Idaho. New Mexico via Idaho. Remember. The linebackers help it even more. I think Jihad Campbell's ready to take another step, maybe be one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Zach Bond has been such a great fit for the Fangio scheme since they brought him in from New Orleans. They're very good again. The reason why I think they're 5, though, I listed all those pass rushers. It's just not as strong and dependable as it was a few years ago, like when Brandon Graham was the number 3 a few years ago. That's the only thing. They've done a really nice job replenishing. It's still really strong. It's just not as dominant as it's been in the past, at least on paper. But the front 7's still very good. I had him at where did I have him? 4? And you had him at 5? Is that right?
Something like that.
You had him at 5. I had him at 4. You have the Seahawks at 4. I have him at 3.
I mean, Seattle's defense, this is one where you have to sort of factor in. This is the Mike McDonald factor a bit, kind of like the Mike McDaniel thing on the offense, where you know that this defensive front will play at a slightly higher level than the sum of its parts, right? And the sum of its parts is pretty good as well. But Leonard Williams is a really good player. Byron Murphy is already a really good player, and a lot of Seahawks training camp is talking about him being completely unblockable right now.
There might be another level to Byron Murphy right now.
He's already excellent and maybe about to become one of the best defensive tackles in the entire NFL, if not the best. So there's a little bit of that in there as well. Uchenna Nwosu, Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dante Fowler they brought in. It's an unspectacular group, but it's good and it's deep. So you add those guys together, and then Ernest Jones in particular, linebacker. I don't know what you want to do you want to throw Nick Emanwari into that based off how they deploy him? Probably not, but you could if you wanted to make the argument. It's a really good group.
I know that PFF is not the be-all, end-all, as people reminded us forever. But the 2023 Ravens were so interesting when we looked at that roster when McDonald was still there.
Yeah.
And we called it like the sea of green. Like green grades are better across the board. Really nice roster. And it's football, right? There's always confounding variables. Was that Eric DaCosta in the team building effort, or was that just Mike McDonald got the most out of these players? But that's Seattle's defense now. It is that sea of green, and that includes 6 to 8 deep on the defensive line. It includes the linebackers. It includes everybody in the secondary, or whatever you want to call Nick Emanwari. Is that become the trademark for Mike McDonald, right? Because now we've seen it in 2 different places. How much is he involved in personnel, both selecting players, but also getting the most out of them? Because like DeMarcus Lawrence, I said last year what an incredible buy low opportunity for them to get him for a little over $11 million a year for a few years, and he was outstanding last year. So they've got edge rush depth, defensive tackle depth. The linebackers are fantastic. Ernest Jones has been one of those like turning point pieces for McDonald's defense once they picked him up in 2024. So I think if you just stacked personnel, they would be good. But you're right. Like I think having the McDonald factor helps for my viewing of the Seahawks as well, and that's why I have them at 3.
It's a huge part of the McDonald factor. Like that group of edge rushers that we mentioned, like those are okay, and certainly compared with a team like the Giants, say, like they're nowhere near as good as the Giants edge rushers, but they may play at a comparable level because of Mike McDonald's defense overall. Like that's a huge part of it.
So you've got the Seahawks at 4, Steelers at 3 for you, and I have them at 5. I think I was toying with putting them in a similar spot as you.
Well, they're tough because they're the opposite of the Seahawks, where they underachieved relative to expectations last year. Like, and you go through and you're like, that's still a ridiculous set of personnel.
Yes.
Like, even just limiting yourself to the front 4, this ability they have to deploy TJ Watt, who, okay, maybe he's declining, not what he quite was. He's still very, very good. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig as a 3 edge rusher deployment is awesome. Cameron Hayward, maybe 187 years old, but he's still playing as good as anybody in the NFL at defensive tackle. Derek Harmon, they've got other depth pieces there as well. That defensive line is outstanding. I don't like Patrick Queen at linebacker. I think he's a problem and a liability at times. I do like Peyton Wilson, and even though they seem to directly be pointing at each other at the end of every single play, I'm kind of working on the basis that's all Patrick Queen's fault at the moment. And I think at linebacker they're solid, but it's definitely not the strength relative to that front 4.
Last year at this time, I was saying, man, the defensive line. I know they ran a 3-4 under Tomlin and the whole thing, and we're including the pass rushers in the defensive line. I said the Steelers could have the best defensive line. I had them and the Texans as the 2 best group of edge rushers and defensive linemen last year, and then felt great about how the Texans played. And then with the Steelers, it was like, man, where is it? Like, why is it underachieving, as you said? But it's very similar from a personnel standpoint. And now, will they be unlocked with the new scheme? I think so. I got them at 5 with my little bit of hesitancy, but wouldn't be surprised if they're a top 2 to 3 unit when it comes to the defensive line, at least. I think of all the groups here, the linebackers are probably maybe them and the Rams.
Yeah.
The most questionable linebackers. That would be the argument for you for putting Houston at 1, no matter what happens.
Yeah. Linebackers
with Aaron Donald. So you have the Rams 2, and I have and Texans 1, as do I, but I would flip them with Donald. So Rams at 2.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Myles Garrett is still the best, arguably player in the NFL. Almost certainly the best defensive player in the NFL. So that's a huge starting point. And then beyond him, Byron Young, Braden Fisk, Poona Ford, Kobe Turner, Josiah Stewart, plus this specter of what if they add Aaron Donald to that? It would be a ridiculous defensive line if they do that. Then, yeah, as you said, linebackers, more questionable. Nate Landman, a lot of people like him. He's okay. And Omar Spates would be the 2 that you would focus on from that. I mean, it's a really good defensive front.
It is. The Texans are the deepest as far as ranking defensive linemen, potential at defensive tackle, and then linebacker.
And by the way,
the Rams clearly have a team building edict. Like they try to get late round linebackers, and they spend more on the defensive line, so they're a little bit more unbalanced.
As much as I'm kind of hedging that Aaron Donald coming back at 35 with a couple of years out of the game is probably not going to be the old Aaron Donald, there is a chance he is. And if he is, they're unquestionably the best defensive front in the NFL. I mean, if Donald, and look, Reggie White won Defensive Player of the Year at 37. Like, he's a unicorn for a reason, and unicorns tend to not necessarily obey the rules for everybody else. Like, someone was like, well, when was the last player that spent a couple of years out of the game and came back even passable? It's like, yeah, but number one, how large is the sample size of players that have even tried to do that? And number two, it doesn't matter because Donald is not like other humans. He never has been.
Eric Weddle came back after a couple of years and was fine.
Was solid. Richie Incognito, I don't
Incognito.
think that was 2 years. But, there have been some. The point being, it's a pretty small sample size of people that have even tried to do that, so it's a fairly meaningless thing to be trying to do. And then number two, these unicorn freak show greatest of all time people do not behave the way other people do, right? It's almost a pointless exercise to be trying to, well, here's the overall aging arc for humans, but here's this one guy over here who we already know is an anomaly. What's the point in trying to map one onto the other? It doesn't function that way. So all you can do, I think, is sit back and go, I have no idea how this is going to go. He might be good. He might be solid. He might be basically Aaron Donald again, only now he's got Myles Garrett alongside him. It could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you add Aaron Donald to that mix, I would probably put them at 1. Just because Garrett, the Garrett factor does – look, I think Will Anderson's closer to Myles Garrett than we would have said last year at this time. But Myles Garrett's still one of one.
Right. But I do think, Will Anderson.
Kobe Turner's good, and Braden Fisk is good, and Byron Young's coming off a career year. They're very good.
They are, yeah. But Will Anderson is, I think, as you say, closer to Myles Garrett than certainly he was before, and maybe other people would want to acknowledge. Janelle Hunter's really good. He's better than anybody else the Rams have. So that boosts Houston relative to the Rams. The interior, again, it's more maybe unproven than Los Angeles, but Sheldon Rankins, Caden McDonald now, if he's what he could be supposed to be, Logan Hall, who you've mentioned a lot this offseason, Mario Edwards, they've got some horses, and then Jadeveon Clowney being added to the mix as well. He's a really good number 3. So
man, they just added Clowney, right? I mean,
and then the linebackers is, as you said, where they I think are unquestionably better. Azeez Al-Shaair, and then sadly, not for him but for me, Henry To'o got re-upped, which means his name is going to persist even longer into having to say it. It's just one of the hardest names in the NFL to say properly.
Al-Shaair has that heart of the defense type of feel to him. So he's been an underrated linebacker. That's been a big part of their success. Nobody's listed when you list the reasons for the Texans' success on the defensive side of the ball. Usually, you could start either spot, defensive line or the secondary. The linebacking group is third. It's the third best, but it's still a good unit with Al-Shaair and To'o, and both of those guys now locked up for the foreseeable future. But yeah, you went through the defensive line depth that they have. Hunter and Anderson. I mean, the other piece with Houston is relying so much on their 4-man rush and still getting home and creating all that pressure. So Hunter and Anderson as the 1-2 punch, and then adding Clowney to the mix. Mm-hmm. Yes, that does make them all the better. And I do love what they've done at defensive tackle, because that's the other place you would say against Houston, I guess, I would run the ball. Maybe they're a little bit light up front. Well, okay, now they've added Caden McDonald. You still have Tommy Togiai, who's played pretty well. Logan Hall, Sheldon Rankins. All of a sudden, defensive tackle has a good group of guys that, different body types to get after the quarterback, and the big-bodied run stopper and what Caden McDonald can be. So that's why the Texans are number 1 for me. Donald does flip it for me, though, if he gets when and if he comes back. Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the secondary. Top 5 secondaries in the NFL.
Number 5 for me, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. Number 3, the Los Angeles Rams. Number 2, the Denver Broncos. And then number 1, the Houston Texans.
All right, the one team I had different was the Eagles, not in the top 5. I may regret that as well.
Yeah, and you put the Patriots in there.
That's an easy explanation, I think. So I've got the Rams at 5. You had them at 3. I've got the Seahawks at 4, as you had the same. I had the Patriots at 3. Yeah, maybe I put them a little bit high, but I wanted to make a point. I think they should be considered in the top 5 here. And then we had the same 1 and 2. Broncos at 2, Texans at 1.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I was just saying about the Texans, when you start talking about their success, start on either end, the defensive line or the secondary, and the front. Start with defensive line or the secondary, and either one's going to be, one of the best units in the NFL. Eagles at 5. I could easily see this. I guess my hesitancy might be just some of the uncertainty at safety, even if you call Cooper DeJean an early down safety this year.
They've got some things to work out, definitely, relative to the past. If you think of the secondary, the way I was doing it is basically what are your strongest 5 defensive backs, right?
Yeah.
They've got Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean as 1-2. That's as strong as anybody in the NFL. Then you've got somewhere in the next 3 names to tick off. You've got Tariq Woolen, Keely Ringo, Michael Carter, Marcus Epps, Andrew Makuba, Cole Wisniewski.
Cole Wisniewski should have put me over the top as one of my sleepers in the draft. Yes.
Somewhere in that group are 3 pretty solid defensive backs to add to the 2 superstars they've got in DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. Jonathan Jones as well, I forgot. I feel like that's a good secondary, particularly when you factor in DeJean's probably going to play a lot of sort of nominal safety and kind of solve some of that. Like, corner looks strong to me, safety less so, but Cooper DeJean's kind of going to play some safety. So, it's probably less of an issue than it looks like if you were just drawing it up on a depth chart.
Reek Woolen, I think, is going to be the X factor there for the Eagles. We live in a golden age of football data, Sam, including bad football data.
A lot of bad data.
A lot of bad data out there, and a lot of needs interpretation.
It's only getting worse with people open sourcing, on-off split bots and stuff.
Gosh, so bad. Let's just run on-off splits through Claude and post it as it's just really bad. So here's the Reek Woolen discussion that I think is a little nuanced here. Through our years at the analytics former Giants of PFF, we used to debate these things, right, where the PFF grade was based off of targeted plays, and people are like, well, that's a big hole in what you're doing, and we started charting off ball, and now you've got all this next gen stats. You have a lot of away from the ball stats, where I believe Reek Woolen shows up a lot better away from the ball than he does on ball, at least in the last year. And I always struggle with what to do with that data, because a lot of it is like when you're in man coverage, most of the charting in those away from the ball is going to give you the benefit of the doubt. When you're just straight up one-on-one, but when you're in zone coverage, it's going to be, of course, this guy ran a curl against you and you're playing, deep third, you're matched up and it's like this guy's open. Reek Woolen is, I think, pretty sticky in man coverage, but then ball skills do matter, right? So you want to separate that from the ball skills. So I think there is a world where he is a really nice complement to Quinyon Mitchell. And the on-ball, that used to be the strength of Reek Woolen, right? He's 6'4", long. He could force some turnovers. I think there might be some high-end potential there because he is in sticky coverage more often than not. I think it might be a little overrated. But I also think maybe his, some of the mishaps he had last year were also overrated. So I think he is the X factor there for the Eagles. Him and Quinyon as the 1-2 punch, and then Cooper DeJean as the do-it-all nickel/safety.
And if he has a good year, that's immediately 3/5 of your secondary in good shape. And I think they're a top 5 secondary at that point, regardless of what the other 2 guys.
Where's Drake in the chat talking up Makuba? Loves Makuba.
Yeah. The on-off stuff, gatekeeping gets a bad rap, but sometimes people need to be kept out of gates. Sometimes for their own safety, you stay out of this area.
You can't drop like Mahomes on-off splits when they literally benched the entire offense and had a third-string quarterback out there last year. You can't do that. I mean, there's a reason why on-off splits don't work. We need to have a PSA at the end of the show or something. There's a lot of stuff stacked up at the end of the show that we need to talk about.
Again, people give gatekeeping a bad rap, but some people need to be kept away from resources for their own good,
You can't also just, there was debates about Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, as there is daily. I think Bill Barnwell put Josh Allen as the
the quarterback of the decade, which is one of the craziest things I've ever seen from somebody who theoretically is a rational, here's my argument constructed from a wide variety of source data, et cetera.
I don't think it's as crazy as you're saying.
It's pretty crazy. Even acknowledging that a couple of years fall into the last decade.
Because you're missing 2 of Mahomes' best seasons, 18 and 19. You're still getting 2 Super Bowl years.
There's no way you can put him in. But you can
easily make the argument that from 2020 on that Josh Allen's been a better player.
But you have to discount the playoffs. Not even how he's played in the playoffs. You have to discount team success, which they don't. Like the only way you can put Allen in
the argument would be
over,
like Allen has played well in the playoffs.
Yeah, but that's not how
Mahomes has played a little better in the playoffs.
But that's just never been how these things have been done. Nobody goes, well, okay, this guy who won all the Super Bowls was actually no better than the guy that didn't win all the Super Bowls if you look at the numbers. So let's put the other guy in. It's like, no, that's
funny
not
that
how
we're
this
arguing
works.
The other side of maybe let's wait.
I'm not saying it's the right thing. I'm just saying that's what happens.
Let's wait for the QB debate.
Right.
And we'll go through it. We got a lot of stuff. Yeah, we should do our own 2020s all-decade team. Anyway, on-off splits, really bad for football.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably worse for quarterbacks anyway, but like bad for anything.
I mean, they're one of the worst data points you can come up with in terms of like do your own research and people trying to make cases from it. It's like, look, you have to understand what you're working with here.
The only position where it might be a little helpful is maybe like an actual position that rotates, like defensive line. Maybe it might be useful, but no positions rotate. Receiver, a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't rotate.
And you're also never going to know if it's real or if it's just.
And then you're at the mercy of your backup. You're at the mercy of who your backup is.
Yeah.
And it's really bad.
Democratizing data generally is good, but there's a
they got to be cut off. These people need to be cut off.
So
my point in the Mahomes Allen thing was like, so then somebody would say, well, total touchdown since 2020. Look, Allen's got 250 and Mahomes has 210. It's like, see, Allen's the best. And then somebody would circle back and be like, most AFC championship appearances, Mahomes has 7 and everyone else in the NFL has 6 or whatever. It's like, all right, let's just use one data point and extrapolate it out as the only thing that matters. And you can make the argument for either side. Let's just use total touchdowns. Let's just use whatever.
Speaking of bad data, I saw Warren Sharp, well-known practitioner of bad data, posting. Did you see the way he worded this? He combined championship game performances or appearances and Super Bowl appearances into the same thing, right? So that Mahomes was at 12 and nobody else was at more than 3 or something because he's like double counting the same years. It's like, well, what? You can't do that. You make it Super Bowls or championship games. You can't put them both together and be like, well, Mahomes is now 5 times better than anybody else in the NFL.
Do whatever you want.
It's like, so, democracy is a good thing, right? But I think it's not great, Like there's a lot of people whose voice should not be heard, is all I'm saying. And a lot of those people now have access to on-off splits.
You guys can find out the people. There's just, you throw a scatter plot out there, and then someone has like the absolute worst interpretation of the data on the scatter plot that we're all looking at.
It's like on the one hand, democracy is great. On the other hand, you let too many people come up with their own interpretation of things, and you end up with Brexit. The
problem
it's
with
not
this,
always good.
I imagine. So, like, we have a lot of listeners who have non-football jobs, presumably, right? We have some people in the NFL, but everyone, you're in healthcare or you're in whatever, you're in business, whatever you do, and you're an expert in your field, right? And you're not like you don't spend all day, football, but you don't spend all day knowing football. We spend all day knowing football, so we can know these things. But like, if they would probably, our listeners who say they're in healthcare, if someone put some, bad healthcare data out there, they'd be pulling their hair out.
Yeah.
Pissed off, and we don't know the difference.
Right.
We're just like, we're at the mercy of the interpretation of the supposed healthcare expert, and that's what happens, because you think that the guy with the scatter plot does football. He must have the right interpretation of what this is, and you don't have time to research it. This happens with politics. This happens with everything. You can't be experts in everything, and we have to be over here, helping you decipher these things.
But also, it's a real danger in today's world because the idiots can sound really convincing, right? And it's difficult.
Look at us.
Yeah, it's difficult to understand. So you see a lot. The medical stuff is interesting because you see a lot of this where like people go, I read the study. It says X, Y, and Z, right? RFK Jr., for example, and it's like,
Whoa.
You don't actually understand how to read the thing, right? And so there's a bunch of actual medical experts and doctors that have like whole social media accounts dedicated to basically saying, here's what RFK said, here's the report he cited, here's what the report actually says that RFK is basically misread because he's not a scientist. He doesn't understand how to read these things. So he can go out there and basically say, I read this data and it says X, Y, and Z, even if he's telling the truth, right? Like even if he's actively or accurately reciting numbers from the report, it's like you haven't been able to read it correctly because you haven't learned that. It's you have to go through education to understand how to read these reports. It's not like anyone could just go in there, read a medical report, understand exactly what it says, and now know as much as the doctors that have done this for years. And this is across the board. But you don't know that from the outside. You just hear a guy make a compelling argument. You're like, well, that sounds right. That's the thing. There's a real risk in disconnecting the experts from the field of data.
Well, the experts aren't all. They've got their own biases too sometimes.
Sure, but at least theoretically they're able to read.
Including in our field.
Right. At least theoretically they're able to accurately read and interpret a report and come up with what that is actually saying, if anything, as opposed to here's some data. I don't even know if it's telling me one thing or the other. I'm just going to roll with what I think.
Let's chop that piece out of our just best secondaries one-off here.
Anyway, the Rams.
We both had the
Seahawks.
We had the Seahawks at 4, both of us.
Yeah.
In secondary.
Again, a little bit of the Mike McDonald thing, but also Nick Emanwari, Devon Witherspoon, Julian. Like it's a really good secondary as well.
Really good. Sea of Green, Witherspoon, I would argue, is a star.
Plus, he had the great Bud Clark.
Of course, you get Bud Clark. I would say, I mean, there's a question at the other cornerback spot. They brought in Terry and Arnold for a visit.
Yeah, though he's now visiting the Saints, I heard.
He's got a few visits lined up. That was the report a few weeks ago, and that's all coming to fruition. Arnold, I mean, again, off-field aside, would be an interesting addition to Seattle if that did come through there. So I'd say Witherspoon's a star. Eamon 1 year away from being a star with the impact that he had last year and what he's capable of. So, I think Seattle warranted here, secondary-wise at 4. Who'd you have at 3?
Rams? Yeah.
You had the Rams at 3. I had them at 5.
Having not been a particularly good secondary before the offseason, I think the Camerons at safety are very good, but they then completely overhaul the cornerback room. You bring in Trent McDuffie, you bring in Jalen Watson, right?
Yeah.
It's now a really good secondary.
Every time I say Jalen Watson's name, I want to say Warren.
I know.
And then
Quentin Lake's really good.
And then who's the other guy that I keep wanting to mess up his name. But they've got, Quentin Lake has been their nickel, safety hybrid. They got the Cams at safety. They're looking pretty good.
Yeah.
The Rams. Mm-hmm. So I had them at 5. Love bringing in the Kansas City corners. And what I mentioned at the time, too, Kansas City, of course, plays a lot more man coverage under Spags than the Rams have been more of a zone-heavy team. Those two additions, plus Myles Garrett, have added new dimensions to the Rams' defense where they don't have to rely on 5-man pressures as much as they have in the past. I think they can rush with 4, more with Garrett in their number 2, maybe number 1, front 7. But now they can play more man coverage on the back end as well with McDuffie and the Chiefs corners coming in. Watson. Keep wanting to say Warren. Yeah. Again, just messing with my brain. So I had the Patriots at 3. Let's discuss. I think their trio of corners might be the best in the NFL. The 1, 2, 3 of Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, and Marcus Jones. Love Marcus Jones in the slot. Have all the way back to his Houston days. Mm-hmm. But Carlton Davis has been
University of, as opposed to Texas.
University of Houston, correct. Big play threat, Marcus Jones on offense as well. So I think that's where they're underrated, is the trio of corners, in particular. Christian Gonzalez, about to get paid. Maybe he'll be paid by the time you're listening to this. But he's becoming one of the better outside corners in the NFL. Davis has had a really long, good career. And then Craig Woodson comes in last year as a rookie, has an outstanding season as a 4th-round safety. And then they had Kevin Byard. And you could argue either side of what is left with Kevin Byard. I think there was a point where he was, in Philadelphia. It looked like it could have been the end. Last year, he had a bunch of turnovers, interceptions for the Bears. But I think there's still enough there as a ball hawk free safety. That's an underrated safety duo, Kevin Byard and Craig Woodson.
Yeah.
To go with the top three of Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones, maybe the best three corners for their specific positions. Two specific outside guys, one classical slot nickel in Marcus Jones. So I put the Patriots. You could argue maybe they should be lower than the Rams or whatever. I put them at 3, but I think they should be discussed in the top 5.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. They're a very good secondary. The addition of Byard, if he still got what he had in the tank last year, is a really good one.
And then we both had Broncos 2,
Yep.
Texans 1. Meaning we both had the Texans number 1 in both defensive line and secondary.
No, you had the Rams.
Well, I have the Texans. The Donald move. The transaction has not been made.
Okay.
The Texans are 1 for me until we see the signing on the bottom line.
Which will happen.
Discuss Broncos at 2. Talk about the Broncos, Sam.
Talk about the Broncos. I mean, look, Patrick Surtain, arguably the best corner in the NFL. Riley Moss, indefatigable on the other side, having an amazing camp.
He's what?
Indefatigable.
Great.
I mean, the trio of corners, like you mentioned, the Patriots having the best trio of corners in the NFL. I'd say Denver is probably better. I would say Surtain is better than anybody the Patriots can deploy. Maybe Moss is worse than Carlton Davis. Maybe he's not.
I did have the Broncos ahead of the Patriots, by the way.
Sure, but you then made the argument that they have the best trio of corners in the NFL.
Oh, I see.
I'm saying Denver might be better. Jaquan McMillan's a good slot as well, and then their safety group of Hufanga, Brandon Jones, that's a strong corner group.
It's a good group.
That's not even factoring in Jahdae Barron. He can't get on the field.
Oh yeah,
and when he did, wasn't
Barron is a part of my
right.
He's a part of.
Even though when he has been on the field, he hasn't looked great.
That's all right. He'll be fine. He'll be fine in year 2.
He's one of those guys I refuse to believe, even though the evidence is currently saying he's not any good. I refuse to believe that the college player that we saw is going to end up as anything other than a good NFL player. Maybe year 1, I don't know what the deal is, but year 1 does not represent who he will be. And I'm going to die on that hill for like 7 years worth of bad to average play. And only then will I finally admit, okay, fine, something happened.
Hey, I didn't give up on DJ Turner after an uneven.
I'm putting it out there that there's going to need to be at least 5 years of bad play before I'm willing to write off Jahdae Barron as a good NFL player.
I agree. I'm with you. While we're talking Broncos, I did mean to answer the question, and that somebody said, if you're live, you'll respond to the Broncos.
Why do we keep?
I don't know why this is controversial here.
Conspiracy theories.
We're live most of the time.
Almost always we're live, except for the time where you bailed to Massachusetts and we put in some pre-recorded shows.
Yeah, and you will also know if we're not live because I
usually say right up at the
we're
top.
live, and then I'll look at you
right
as if I'm lying,
and then usually do clarify that we're lying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't lie to you people. Why would I lie to you? The Broncos front 7.
Yes.
I didn't have them in there because you lose John Franklin Myers.
Uh-huh.
We have some unknown with Jonathan Cooper and his off-field to go back to that whole thing. They're still very good. Multiple years of a very good defense. I wonder if there's a little bit of a step back this year.
Yeah,
from that defensive line. In part because I feel like we saw it at the end last year.
Yeah.
I think they got a little fatigued at the end, and I don't know if the depth is there. We could have Q Robinson could be what we thought he could be, and fully add to the mix. But I wonder if there's a little bit of a hit to their depth in the front 7 that comes back to bite.
I also just don't think they're as good man for man as the other teams that we were talking about.
Agreed.
I mean,
the other teams all got better, and
Yeah.
the Broncos have been much more status quo, and if anything, lost JFM this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Bonito is very good. Zach Allen is very good. They might not be as good as the comparable player that you're talking about on the other top 5 teams that we were mentioning. So, and they're the best players they have. The depth, I think, isn't as good either. So, Denver's got a really good defensive front. I don't think it's as good as the top 5 teams we've been talking about.
And then the Texans number 1 secondary.
Yeah, I mean,
they just keep getting better.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good already. Jalen Petrie, the corners that they've got to deploy. I mean, that's a very good group.
Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley on the outside, Jalen Petrie doing their safety nickel hybrid deal.
Right. So maybe the best duo of corners in the NFL, again, up for debate. They're certainly in the conversation. Slot becomes interesting because you got Petrie sort of doing that as opposed to a dedicated slot corner. And then you've got the safety dynamic, which is solid too.
That's where when I mentioned the Patriots thing, it might be skewed in my brain. It's like when I called Marcus Jones a classical nickel rather than your big nickel.
Throwback.
Because, there's certainly a case that it's Houston because of the way Petrie's been playing. Kalen Bullock's been a ball hawk in the secondary.
Who got better, I think, last year.
Yeah.
Like year one, I think he was like the safety equivalent of like the Trayvon Diggs boomer bust. Yeah,
there were a lot of coverage busts in there.
You're going to get a bunch of big plays, but you're also going to give up a ton. I thought last year he was better across the board.
That was the biggest difference, I think, in Houston last year. They were a very good defense in 2024. But, Texans fans even remember the number of times that you either gave up a big play, 50, 60 yarders, or had 50, 60 yarders on the table, and Mac Jones was overthrowing somebody, Trevor Lawrence was overthrowing somebody, namely Brian Thomas Jr. There was a drop. I think Josh Allen had a couple wide open, would-be 70 yarders that were missed. That was the difference. I don't think Houston had those coverage busts and mishaps as much last year. It was way more prevalent in 24, and they were a very good defense. Last year, elite defense. I've called it the best of the last 10 years. I don't know if the numbers back that up. That was just what it felt like. They didn't have those types of coverage busts. Now you have, Bullock, who did make a lot of big plays as a rookie in 24. And you add Ed Reed Blankenship, who's always making big plays. So they've added to this secondary a couple draft picks the last couple years as well. So got the Texans at number 1, secondary and front seven. I think we've got them as the best defense.
Hence the defense they've been able to deploy.
How about we did rank coaches?
We did. Mm-hmm.
Your top 5. Are we saying head coach or coaching staff here? We've already made our lists. I don't know what the goal was though.
I kind of went with largely head coach, but you want to throw in coordinators, whatever, away you go. This is really hard. There's a lot of very good coaches. Seahawks fans are going to hate it, but we'll make it up to them later this week. But for the moment, they're going to hate it because I had Mike McDonald.
We'll make it up when my list comes out.
I had him 5th, even though he's flavor of the month. He's on Hard Knocks. It's all good. Number 4, Ben Johnson, Chicago Bears. Number 3, Sean Payton, the Denver Broncos, who somehow I think is underrated at this point. Maybe because he's kind of what's the word? Grading's not the right word. What's the word I'm looking for here? Spiky. Number 2, San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. And then number 1, Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams.
We had a little different list here. I'll explain some of my – because you had first-year head coach Ben Johnson on there at 4. I avoided –
Last
1 year head coach. He's only been head coach for 1 year is the point I'm trying to make. I avoided that.
You mean other than your number 1 team?
McDonald's had 2 years as head coach. What are you talking about?
Is he?
Yeah.
Was that not his first year?
No, 24 he was there.
Wow.
And then he's always
just deleted a year.
He always just needs half a year to get settled, and then it's dominance. That's what happened in Baltimore.
Okay.
Half a year.
6 months to get his feet under the desk, and then away we go.
That's exactly correct.
Got it.
I got the Patriots at 5.
Yeah, Braves.
Are
you?
What?
Are you secretly biased towards Braves too?
I am not.
Okay.
I just.
So there's no pictures going to emerge of you and him.
It was a girls' trip. Wait. Sorry. Patriots at 5. Broncos at 4.
Those would be some pretty disturbing pictures.
49ers at 3. Rams at 2. Seahawks at 1. Wow, look at the NFC West.
Yeah.
Niners.
Right? I mean, that's
Niners,
the consistent
Rams,
theme. Each of us has got the entire NFC West outside of the Cardinals.
Seahawks are at 1 because they're the champs.
They are.
To be the man, you got to beat the man, and you got to beat the Seahawks. They're at 1. I'm just buttering up all our Seahawks fans.
Yeah, I mean, they won.
I put the Patriots at 5.
It's also wild that neither one of us has Andy Reid and the Chiefs in there.
Shoot, I forgot that. I just should have put the Chiefs.
But isn't that A, indicative of A, the depth?
Recency bias.
A, the depth in the NFL. I think there are a lot of really good coaches now. I'm like, so on neither of our lists, Andy Reid and the Chiefs, LaFleur and the Packers, who have, I think, the best record in the NFL since he got that job. Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, O'Connell is widely seen as an outstanding coach as well, and yet somehow maybe on the hot seat going into this year. Like, these are guys that don't appear in the top 5 for either of us, and yet they're all awesome coaches. And B, like you said, the recency bias, like how quickly we go from, yes, he's unquestionably a Hall of Famer and one of the best coaches of all time, to, there's a bunch of guys better than him. It's like, are there, or did they just have a bad year?
Andy Reid should be on here. My bad. Chiefs. Again, I feel like I was making a point that Vrabel's had success at 2 different spots.
No, you are. I mean, he's, again, I think maybe head coach more than anything else we're talking about here. It's really hard. Like, there are 12 guys that can for 5 spots.
Yeah. I only left Ben Johnson off the list because he's only done it for 1 year. I thought about Liam Cohen. I think both of those guys, right? We've seen coaches have a good first year.
Yeah.
Like if Liam Cohen and the Jags, if they go win the AFC South again and beat our Texans, Liam Cohen is in this discussion.
Right.
If Andy Reid just has they're going to have an easier schedule. They're probably going to win 10 or 11 games at least this year, and the Chiefs are back. It's like, Andy Reid should.
I think you could give both Cohen and Ben Johnson benefit of the doubt based off what they did as coordinators. Like, I think we've seen repeatable, demonstrable upping of a unit in a way that's impressive, right? Like his ability. Ben Johnson in particular, I think you can see this through line of like details and how he immediately changes the outlook of certain players, certain things based off that attention to detail.
I think when you're ranking coaches, more than any other sport, maybe basketball is the only one where you would say the coach is probably dependent on his star players. But even then, like, you got to, I'm not like a basketball expert, but you got to tread lightly to get the most out of your star players. But in football, when you're ranking coaches, you almost want to separate them from the quarterback as much as possible, especially with the Belichick deal going on, where pre and post Brady, it's like, there's some good coordinator years in there, but it's mediocre head coach results, if not poor head coach results. So that's where I'm leaning on Sean Payton at 4 in my list and 3 in your list. We've now seen when Drew Brees was on the roster, he went 9-1. I know on-off or without splits are not always the best thing in the world, but that was informative, I think, for Payton. But now getting his own quarterback, developing him, we know how much he has his hand in personnel, which is a factor here. And now they've become one of the best teams in the NFL from nothing, right? Like when they made the trade for Russell Wilson, they were starting over and they didn't have a great roster.
Also, that was their big swing, and it was a disaster.
Right. They recovered from that. They in a year where they were supposed to, take a massive step back, they all of a sudden, because they were, paying all this money to him, all of a sudden they're one of the better teams in the NFL. So Sean Payton, I think, has done a really nice job for his legacy. Not that you ever separate him from Breeze, but all these coaches, you want to see them do it with another quarterback.
Yeah.
That's why we've raved about Kyle Shanahan all these years. He's never had a Hall of Fame quarterback at any point. Maybe Matt Ryan's fringe Hall of Fame, and always had success. So Kyle Shanahan has to be on this list. He's 2 for you, 3 for me. And then McVay, now we have across Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford and multiple roster rebuilds and everything. He's been in the mix, and he's changed a lot.
Yeah.
People forget 7 or 8 years ago, we're like, man, is Sean McVay ever going to change?
Him and Shanahan.
Maybe even some of his, I want to say it carefully. People around him who are not our friends that people know. Other people around him asking, like, hey, Sean, are we gonna be able to take this to the next level? Even asking that internally. And they have, to the point where everybody in the NFL is like, got to do what McVay's doing.
Yeah.
Got to have 13 personnel. So he's got to be up there as well.
Yeah.
And Mike McDonald's number 1 because they won the Super Bowl.
Because they won the Super Bowl.
That's right.
The coaching thing is, I think, a really interesting dynamic now in today's NFL, because I think coaching, the power of a good coach is real. Like, the impact that those guys can make is huge. If you get a really good coach, whether it's Mike Vrabel, Matt LaFleur, Ben Johnson, Andy Reid, McVay, Shanahan, blah, blah, blah. The fact that there's a lot of them, it's not really the point. I think the difference between those guys and the guys that are not good coaches is massive, right? So if you find one of those guys, it can make a huge difference. And I also think now that if you do find one, it should take an extremely large amount of evidence for you to move away from that. So if you think you have one of those guys, and this is where I think LaFleur is one, Kevin O'Connell is one, like these guys with a track record of really good coaching.
I hate that they're not in my list here.
But the point is, this is where I'm starting to sort of agree with what Brady was talking about, even if he doesn't necessarily practice what he preaches. It should take a lot for you to fire that guy, right? Like if the Vikings move away from Kevin O'Connell because they went a few years without finding a quarterback, that would be insane because of his track record of being a very good head coach. And the chances of you getting the guys better than him, it's probably not great. It's probably way more of a chance that you're going to stumble into the next, buffoon who you're going to have to fire in a couple of years because he's not one of those good coaches. If you have a good coach, do not fire him unless you have incredibly strong evidence that, A, you have a better candidate somewhere who you can get, not just that there's one out there, and B, that the team has basically like checked out on the guy, right? Like the message is no longer getting through. He's lost the locker room. They're not paying attention to him anymore. He's not the guy that he used to be. If those two things aren't true, don't fire the coach.
Yeah.
Stick with the guy who you know is good.
We're missing D'Amico Ryans, our Texans head coach.
That's harsh.
It's tough, man. It's tough to.
I mean, again, the list of names not on this. D'Amico Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, Liam Cohen, who you mentioned. There's a lot of good coaches there.
And I'm going to be on O'Connell and LaFleur's side. We've both talked up LaFleur a lot, and because I keep coming back to if the quarterback's the most important position in sports, which it is, and then we're all a little at the mercy of if you have a top 4 guy, there's people that don't think Zach Taylor's a great coach because he has Joe Burrow, and you can make argument he had to help develop him, and you can make arguments either side. But I guess my prediction is if you moved on from Zach Taylor and you brought in any other new coach, I think Joe Burrow would still be okay. I mean that's the perception at least. And so because the elite quarterback has such an impact, that's why we'll learn a lot as Joe Brady takes over for Sean McDermott, right? We'll learn more as Jesse Minter takes over for John Harbaugh in Baltimore. We haven't had a lot of top 4 or 5 quarterbacks having coach turnover through the years.
And these are all interesting data points for that dynamic we just talked about of when do you fire the guy. Like Harbaugh had 15 years of success, had one bad year, and they're like, all right, time for you to go. Like, I mean, was it, right? Or would we have been better off focusing our ire on the defense that was garbage, right? Could we have fired the defensive coordinator instead, kept the good head coach in place, and kept on moving forward in a positive direction? Like, if Harbaugh goes and has immediate success with the Giants and or Jesse Minter doesn't have success in Baltimore, you're going to be looking back at that and going, man, did we have to make that call?
The offensive coach thing's interesting. Like Caleb in the chat says the Packers are soft under LaFleur. And here's an interesting one, right? I think when we're talking about what's most important, it's all percentage based, right? The most important thing to me, if you're an offensive coach, is that you are able to win with multiple quarterbacks and elevate them. So it's like Andy Reid has a history of elevating multiple quarterbacks, and then when he gets Mahomes, all of a sudden that's accelerated even further. But the baseline was so strong for what Andy Reid had. But we might never get to the Mahomes era if they don't bring in Spags and make the right defensive coordinator call. He's been a big part of those championship runs. You could argue the same thing for Shanahan, right? The most important thing he's done is success across multiple quarterbacks. That gets you on the green, as I always say. That's the foundation. But if he doesn't have Saleh for a bit, if he doesn't have the right good defensive coaches, they're not making their runs either. They've built a good defense as well. That could be you could make is that a blind spot for LaFleur in Green Bay, is finding the right defensive mix? Halfley did a nice job for a couple of years. He's out. Is that the criticism? For O'Connell, he's had Brian Flores. We've generally talked that up, but is there a ceiling to Brian Flores and his defense? That's the interesting discussion, because I think the offensive coaches, the most important thing is getting the most out of the quarterback. And if you get the Hall of Fame type, really putting that on steroids, but you still have to hit on your defensive staffing and how you build that side of the ball as well. All right, rambling about coaching stuff. You want to rank quarterbacks?
Sure.
All right, good.
Where is that? My top 5. Baltimore, number 5. Cincinnati, number 4. Excuse me. Los Angeles Rams, number 3. Kansas City, number 2. and Buffalo number 1. So almost all of these are basically like, who's your starter? The only reason the Rams jump higher is because I think their backup situation is better than most of these teams.
Ty Simpson?
Yeah.
So you're giving them
the
credit.
anointed one.
So you're giving them credit for Ty Simpson.
I am.
For future proof.
Because they have a plan.
They have a plan. Because they have a plan.
McVay must love him. Otherwise, why would they draft him?
Okay. So I have to stay consistent because I didn't write down mine. But I had the Chiefs at 1. I mean, I had Mahomes as the best quarterback. I said I'll give him one more year.
Yeah.
When we did our best player at every position.
You and the NFL executives.
We're 1 year away.
One more year.
Bills at 2 with Allen. I'll say Burrow and the Bengals 3, Rams 4, Ravens 5.
Okay.
So I bumped Lamar down. I finally put Stafford's going to have such an interesting career path because I don't even think he was in top 5 quarterback discussions until he got to the Rams.
Yeah.
And then it was like, is he top 8? Is he top 5? Now he's over here winning an MVP and in top 3 or 4 discussions.
But only ever, like you said, every other year.
What?
But only
every other year. Yeah, he wasn't good at the end of 20.
It's like on the one hand, so he always had this group of stands for his entire Detroit career. But a lot, because, there's always a cohort of people who, if they see a guy with a big arm and the guy capable of making all the throws, right, they're like, well, that guy's amazing, even if on a down-to-down basis he isn't. And then the inconsistency is always something else. It's always somebody else's fault, right? And obviously Detroit is an easy argument to make that that's the case because they were bad for most of his entire time there. And so there was always a fairly significant group of people that were like, nah, Stafford's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You just don't see it in Detroit because the Lions, right? And as soon as he moves to the Rams, he becomes an instant Super Bowl contender, an MVP caliber quarterback. You're like, like maybe they were right. But then if that's the case, why does he have this on-off switch with the Rams where like 1 year he's MVP caliber, Super Bowl champion, et cetera, and then the next year he's just good, not great? Like, is that inconsistency part of why he wasn't amazing with the Lions the entire time? And maybe it wasn't all the Lions.
Because you can get real meta with this stuff, right? I ask this about traits all the time. Remember, we used to always debate production versus traits, and we were like, well, production matters when you're projecting draft prospects, and some people are like, oh, well, you got to look at traits. And it's, again, probably a combination of both. Do traits ever change? Like, is the idea of traits that they're just inherent and that's just what the guy is and they're always there? So that was the idea of Stafford. Like, the argument is he's always been this guy.
Yeah.
Since he was drafted by the Lions in 2009, he's always been this guy. All he needed was the right environment, the right run game. He never had a 1,000-yard rusher. He had Calvin Johnson. But he never had these great things. Look at all the yards he put up, right? So the arguments always work back and forth against themselves.
But that is, I think, an interesting philosophical demarcation, is that there are definitely people out there that believe traits there's like a base level of ability, right? Like, how good are you? And that's static, and that doesn't change.
Right.
And so there are definitely people out there that believe that once you've sort of established a high watermark on that, like we've seen how good he can be, and it's, best quarterback in the NFL, all-pro, Super Bowl champion, et cetera, you are that guy forever, right? And I think that's what's, like, Mahomes is the beneficiary of that right now. He established right out of the gate with his first few seasons in the year, he's the best quarterback in football. And so he is the best quarterback in football until, like, we see utterly damning evidence that he's no longer that guy.
That he hasn't changed. Only the circumstances have changed.
It's because we know how much circumstances dictate, performance for quarterbacks. It's easy to make that argument in your own head that, well, we already saw he's amazing. So if he's no longer amazing, it must be something else. But I think it's also reasonable to say, okay, there's logic to that, and I don't necessarily disagree with it conceptually. But I also don't think that a guy is just one level for his entire life, and that's who he is, right? I think clearly guys go up or down. They have good years, they have bad years, independent of what's around them. And so I think you have to balance those two things, that if it's close between how good a guy can be, like what is his maximum, possible ability given optimal circumstances. If that's close, well, I think you also have to conclude that over a period of time, those lines can fluctuate and cross over, right? So that number 2 can be number 1 for a period of time and then go back to being number 2.
So that's why you have going back to our QB of the decade discussion.
Yeah.
You currently have Josh Allen as the number one quarterback in the NFL.
Correct.
But Mahomes as the QB of the decade.
Yes.
And I'd say the argument, I didn't read what Barnwell's argument was. I'm sure it was more statistical. And I would assume, given his history, he would look more at, hey, Josh Allen's playoff failures are less on him and more on the defense. And that Mahomes has had a very good defense throughout the 2020s in the playoffs. But he's also had excellent postseason performances outside of 2 Super Bowls. Maybe he's using those against him. He had the 2 awful Super Bowls against the Bucs and against the Eagles did happen in the playoffs. But my point is the statistical case for Josh Allen since 2020, and I'm seeing both sides of this too, right? Chiefs fans are like, why is 2020 your cutoff for Josh Allen? Because 18 and 19 weren't as good for him statistically by far. Now, for the QB of the decade discussion, you have to use 2020 because that's the decade, right? That's the reason why they're doing it, right? So there's arguments on both sides. But there are arguments for Josh Allen since 2020 statistically being better than Mahomes. It's pretty strong across the board.
Because of the way those work, though, I can't see how you can. Yeah, like there are.
You're missing 2 elite seasons for Mahomes, 18 and 19, and you're missing 2 of his 2 worst seasons in this QB of the decade.
So it becomes closer by simply drawing the line at the decade.
But at some time, also putting the team on your back and going and winning AFC championships and Super Bowls should matter in this discussion. But that was always the point in favor of Brady, and that's the point in favor of Mahomes.
Like you could make very strong arguments that Peyton Manning was a superior quarterback statistically during the decade where Tom Brady was winning, right? It's like, yeah, but we gravitate towards championships.
2-time QB of the decade, Tom Brady, by the way. Yes, 2-time QB of the decade.
Right.
That may never be done again.
Sure. And I think we can definitely argue, is that correct or not? That, should you? But the reality is they do, right? Teams or I don't even know how these things are selected. Is it the Hall of Fame committee that does this?
The QB of the decade?
Yeah. I mean, the teams of the decade. Like, I don't even know.
Oh, the teams of the decade. I forget.
I think
there's a lot of teams of the decade.
Anyway, my point being, we can debate whether or not it's correct for them to factor in postseason success, but they do. And if you do factor in postseason success, I don't see how there's any conceivable way you could say Josh Allen is the quarterback of the decade over Patrick Mahomes.
So you would say Mahomes is QB of the decade, and you have Josh Allen as QB1. You're taking him today as it stands in 2020.
Yeah, I think Mahomes is QB of the decade because he's the guy with all the championships. And right now, Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes is. I don't think those two things are inconsistent or illogical or can't go together. I think that makes total sense. Like Mahomes' baseline has been higher, and right now the 2 lines are moving so that Allen's is higher.
Those are fair arguments.
But again, like we can debate whether or not you should factor in how many Super Bowls did a guy win, but they do. Tom Brady was 2-time all-decade quarterback, and I think you could argue that Peyton Manning was better in at least one of those decades, and the other one, you could argue that maybe Aaron Rodgers was better. Statistically, like if that was your baseline, you're like, who was the better guy over the however many hundreds of games they played this decade? Brady wouldn't be the answer, I don't think, in either decade, but he won all the championships.
Brady's regular season success is actually, I think, a little underrated because his peaks are right there with all the guys with the perceived high peaks like Peyton and Rodgers and Mahomes and everything.
But I think the baseline would be, certainly for the first decade, is Manning's higher.
Oh, yeah, his regular season baseline was higher during that.
But the reason you go with Brady is because he won all the championships.
That's the argument, like people, because those debates were happening not on Twitter but in the message boards back in the early aughts, and it's kind of like the Stafford argument that Brady was always Brady was always that good, but he's throwing to David Patton and David Gibbons, and it's like, well, as soon as he has decent weapons, here come the stats.
Yeah, but my point
Therefore, Brady was always that guy, and he made a pretty strong case that he was always that guy, that the Patriots just always built through their defense and didn't actually give him weapons till 2007.
But my point being, it's the exact same argument, which is the only way of putting one guy over the other is to ignore the thing that puts these guys in the discussion. You can definitely construct a strong statistical argument that Josh Allen has been better than Patrick Mahomes since the turn of the 2010s, right? But you can't put him in there. But you could do, if you're doing that, you then would have to put another quarterback over Tom Brady in probably both of the last 2 decades. right? Certainly the first one. So if we're doing that, we need to go and change how these teams are done.
I still think it's Brady over Rodgers, even regular season-wise in the 2010s, but I get your point there.
Maybe. I would be interested in putting out all those numbers and seeing how close that actually is. My point being, this is not the way these teams are done. So to go out there and be like, he was fairly strong about this, saying like it's basically said if it was wrapped up today, Allen would be the guy. And you're like, really?
I need to stick to my guns here too. We shouldn't care about one man's opinion on quarterback rankings.
It's ESPN's opinion.
Via Bill
That's
Barnwell.
how this works.
Yeah.
ESPN.
Yeah. When you said the Brady stuff, that was ESPN says.
Exactly. Not me. Let me read it since we're banging on about it so much. Josh Allen. Allen would be the quarterback on the all-decade first team if it was to be released tomorrow. Although there would be at least some debate about instead awarding it to.
What?
Although there would at least be some debate about instead. Oh, this is an awkward sentence. About instead awarding it to
Patrick Mahomes,
Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes. Every single all-decade quarterback is enshrined in the Hall of Fame, besides Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, who obviously will be. Regardless, Allen will join them. So this was his argument of Allen is a future Hall of Famer, right? That was basically the premise of this whole thing, in which he put some of the most astounding, like just taken as read stuff that I think is extremely debatable, which is Allen would be the all-decade quarterback if we release it tomorrow, and then also Lamar Jackson over Mahomes would be in the running, at least by the way he's ordered that.
I think if you asked everybody, all right, first instinct, QB of the decade, more people say Mahomes.
Correct. So at the very minimum.
That's the default. And then if you want to make an Allen argument, you start digging up stats.
Yeah.
And you say, well, he's better at these. And if you want to make a Lamar argument, you lean on
2 MVPs.
But it's not 2 MVPs either, because it was 2019 was his MVP.
Oh, that's right.
So Lamar is not in this
that's
discussion.
A joke of an argument. Yeah.
Lamar, as I mentioned before, you could argue he's got the highest highs.
Right.
You know, his statistical profile in the 24
no
seasons, probably the best year out of anybody.
But he's now no different from Stafford and Burrow, for example.
Yeah, but he missed time in 21, 22, and 25.
Putting Lamar in there is honestly more crazy than suggesting that Allen is the cast iron all-decade quarterback. Like, that's ridiculous. The idea that Lamar Jackson is the all-decade quarterback over Mahomes is, and maybe he's not doing that, but then don't put his name in the thing. That's absurd. You think this increased our chances of Bill liking us or not?
Never interacted with Bill through the years.
Bill hates anything that was connected with PFF.
Yeah.
Like way more than anybody else. It's wild because he's obviously an original Football Outsiders guy back in the day. There was, extensive rivalry between the two. Aaron's, warm to us now over the
Aaron's
years.
a friend of the show now,
right?
Officially.
He used to dislike us, but Bill Barnwell is the guy I have respect for it, as an Irishman who holds grudges like an Olympic sport. I have respect for that. Look, he's got Roy.
You have respect for his grudge holding.
He's got Roy Keane levels of grudge holding. He has never, as far as I'm aware, he has never once referenced PFF in anything he's ever written, which, okay, at various times that's made sense, but at some point during history, that took work, right?
And why would you when it correlates to wins and all these
it's like,
things?
Here's a data point that completely backs up what I'm trying to write, but instead I'm going to go find some ridiculous, obscure data point to use because I refuse to reference PFF. Like he actually did what Shannon Sharp claimed that one time on the show.
So I know we just discussed Bill Barnwell's ESPN rankings, but here's my PSA. I implore you to not care about one person's subjective quarterback rankings. Here's what I think are interesting from rankings. We mentioned this before. When you poll all the executives, like Mike Sando does, like Jeremy Fowler does, and then you've got some sort of consensus, there's probably some signal in that, and it's at least interesting, right? Because you're saying, like, what do the coaches think? What do the executives think? That's interesting. And then something analytical, assuming the numbers aren't just like total touchdowns, right? And that's the other part my other PSA here. I get multiple ones. The total touchdown number in the coming years. The argument against Allen, because the total touchdown number is like where he shines. He's got a bunch of those tush pushes and different things in there. That's going to really carry a lot of weight in a lot of these QB debates in the coming years. And they're inflated in a different way. I think there used to be like an art to the QB sneak that was earned. And now I'm not saying this is all of Allen's touchdowns. I'm just saying it's like really putting him over the top in total touchdowns. So the tush push is helping a ton. And any Jalen Hurts argument centers around, I think, the proper he's won a lot and he's had 2 excellent Super Bowl appearances. But the bad argument is like, look at all of his touchdowns, because I think those are a little fake and inflated. And again, it's not like it's a bad thing. It's just don't use that as the argument for why he's good, right? It's not bad scoring touchdowns, but it's bad when a dude gets carried into the end zone and you say this is why he's better than this other quarterback. That's my point in that.
It's just dangerous. Yeah, it's another example of like, look, the information has never been more readily available than ever before, but people are using it as a replacement for actually, watching and deciding things. And all too often, you just fall back on a data point once the visual of it has been lost to the sands of time. You just, look, all these stats say one thing. It's like, but you forgot how these stats were warped at the time, right? You forgot the way they were being manipulated. And so you're just looking at the number and be like, stats don't lie, as people say. The numbers don't lie, and the numbers say this pretty conclusively. Like, but you knew they were lying at the time. Why do you've forgotten how they lied to you?
Here's the other one, the on-off splits, as we were mentioning earlier, because people are just clodding up a bunch of football sites. We can pull on-off splits right now. They're awful for quarterbacks for the most. I mean, they're not awful for quarterbacks. Like the most damning argument against Joe Burrow is Jake Browning coming in and having success.
Right.
In one season, by the way, but having success. There's probably a little bit there. Like if you want to make an anti-Joe Burrow argument, there's probably something there. But then you have like the Mahomes thing last year, as I was saying earlier, they put in a third-string quarterback who had never played football with all the backups. And it's like, of course there's a big drop-off. Like they quit on the season. They were good after that. So don't use that. Like their context does matter. The record without. I mean, there's a lot of noise in there. On-off splits don't work in football because you don't have subs. It's interesting in hockey where you have a ton of substitutions. It's kind of interesting in basketball.
The smaller number of people is also a pretty important part of that. Like an on-off split is going to be much more relevant when you're 20% of the team than
of course.
Than when you're
one of 11
on one side of the ball, right?
That's why I said
you're 20% of the team on both sides of the ball.
People have studied this left and right, and I don't think they've come up to anything conclusive. And let's say even if they did come up with something somewhat interesting, there are way better ways of evaluating players now, including the bad, awful PFF grades that everybody hates. Like that's way better than on-off splits. Sorry. The only place I told you where I think it might be informative is on the defensive line, is if you could show there might be some signal in when you have this Jordan Davis, when you have this big run-stopping nose tackle, there is a force multiplier effect for the run defense. That's the one place where I think there might be some information. But even then, it's, a 50-yard run skews a lot of things, right? There's a lot of things that need to be sorted through there. So just be careful. Be careful out there. Be careful out there in the football data world.
It's a wild world.
We ranked everything, right?
Sure. I mean, we ranked everything we were planning on ranking, I think.
Final news update. We had the so Laramie Tunsil tore his triceps in Saturday practice. Out for an extended period of time, maybe the entire season. Yeah, so that's the starting left tackle for the Washington Commanders.
Brutal. Yeah, huge blow for them because the offensive line, I think, is a pretty important part of what Washington is doing. Tunsil made a huge difference to that offensive line. Arguably the best player on it, certainly the second best. One of the best pass-blocking tackles in football. I mean, just a massive blow.
Really is. They're talking about left guard Brandon Coleman maybe stepping in at left tackle. It's so tough to prepare for these things. And, again, Brandon Thorne will be on here, and you'll be on here on Thursday. We've heard him say, the drop-off in offensive tackles around the league is just massive. This is the argument on draft day for just drafting offensive line, for drafting the big guys early. And when you go back to, say, the Carolina Panthers drafting Monroe Freeling when they technically had starting offensive tackles, right? Or even had the ability to have starting offensive tackles in the coming season, and now they need to tap into that depth. It's the argument for positional value where, again, Jahmyr Gibbs has been an outstanding player. If Jahmyr Gibbs went down, could you get a fraction of what Jahmyr Gibbs could do? Yeah, it's easier to find a fraction of what Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson can do than it is I think, the offensive linemen, especially at this time of the season. That's the argument for positional value coming back up again. Like, what does Washington do? They're going to have to take their left guard, kick him out to tackle where he struggled a couple years ago, former TCU tackle Brandon Coleman. There's nobody to trade for because nobody's trading a starting offensive tackle at this point. It's just very difficult to replace that position. Where if you're trying to find a fill-in running back or a linebacker, it's easier to find that guy and not have a major drop-off in your offense or defense. That's the argument for it. Not so much the impact of the player, but it's the replacement level, right? That's what wins above replacement is based off of in sports. So it's a tough blow for Washington. A similar thing happened with the Falcons last year with Caleb McGarry going down right before the season, and they replaced him fine. They did it. Argue against myself. Elijah Wilkinson stepped in and did okay. But the Chargers last year, right? You lose Rashawn Slater. You lose Joe Alt. There's no offensive tackle shop to just buy a starting offensive tackle. It doesn't exist. And so it can have a massive effect on the offense. So, tough one for Washington.
Yeah, huge blow for them.
What else you want to talk about?
I wish we could turn the injuries off for preseason.
I know.
Just feels crappy with guys going down before we've actually it's bad enough guys getting injured in games, but at least you can convince yourself, all right, that's just part of doing business. But in practice and preseason, it's like, come on, do we really need to be getting the guys hurt for this?
And you're always trying to figure out what that balance is between working them hard, preparing for the season. Are they ready to go live? Are they ready to tackle? But there's also just freak injuries that can happen in any drill. They are way more prevalent in preseason than they are you don't have a whole lot of in-season practice injuries compared to preseason, right? Training camp. Anyway, who are you typing to?
Don't worry about it.
Are you in the chat? At least you're interacting in the chat, right? Still no update on Aaron Donald and Carson Beck. Carson Beck has backed up his excellent Hall of Fame performance.
With a practice?
With a no-look pass in practice.
Oh.
And so if you're stacking data points, Carson Beck having a good game plus a no-look pass, what does that do for you?
You know what? So no-look passes in the NFL are kind of a pet peeve of mine because they're not, right? It's not a no-look pass if you're looking but your head is pointed in the other way. That's a look pass. It's just you disguise where your eyes are pointed. You're not, but you're looking where you're throwing.
You want to call it a helmet turn pass?
I don't want to call it anything. It's not a no-look pass if you're looking where you're throwing.
It's a deceptive pass.
Correct.
It's deceiving the defense because they're looking at your helmet. They're not looking at your eyes.
But no-look passes in soccer, for example, are actual no-look passes. You're not looking where you're passing the football. You're just aware of the space around you, right? That's a no-look pass. If I'm looking over here and I dink a back heel in this direction, that's a no-look pass. I was not looking where I was aiming. I just knew, and I'm that damn good I can make that happen. It's not a no-look pass where my head is pointed at you, but my eyes are over here and I throw the ball over there. The ball went where I was looking.
It is.
It's not. I looked at where I was throwing the football. That's not no look. By definition, I have looked where I was throwing.
Jeez. Yeah, but your helmet is It's the
my helmet. It's not a
your
no
helmet's
look.
Looking elsewhere.
I don't look with my helmet. I look with my eyes.
It's good deceiving. Mo Hall wants to know your thoughts on the Liverpool sale.
I think it's up in the air whether it's happening or not. But generally,
TBD before we have a.
Generally speaking, I wouldn't be a fan of selling anything to Jeff Bezos.
You don't think he'll run a good operation?
I don't know if he would run it, but he's buying a stake of it, theoretically, I think.
You have pause that will be bad for your team?
I just don't think, Jeff Bezos buying a piece of anything would be particularly good for you. Oh, it isn't? No, a large minority stake is what he's looking for. Yeah, I don't,
Why don't you grab a small minority stake in there?
Yeah, because I don't think I have that kind of financial clout.
No. Maybe if the show takes off. Maybe if we get to 100,000 subscribers.
I think we need a lot more than 100,000 for me to be getting into Liverpool shares.
Maybe, perhaps. Anything else? Anything else that we were parking lotting? That we were supposed to come back to?
I have a newfound respect for dry needling after getting it done on my tennis elbow.
Vic tore you up a little bit with the dry needle?
Vic went in there. Dr. Vic from the Boo Boo Breakdown went in there with a dry needle, rooted around trying to dislodge some, I don't know, knot muscle fibers or something. pretty sore.
Tennis elbow is such a fake injury.
It's always been one of those things where, remember, you hear about NFL players getting it done. It's just like an abstract term to you, and you're like, yeah, whatever. It must be like acupuncture where you don't even feel anything. He was like, no. He's like, I tell you what, this is going to hurt. And then after we've done it, it'll feel like you've done like 1,000 curls. And he wasn't joking. Like it really did.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. So
given your experience, do you have any idea how TJ Watt ended up more injured after dry needling through his pec or whatever they were doing?
No, I don't remember exactly. What did they do to him exactly?
It was his pec, and it didn't.
But what did it? Yeah.
It hurt him more. I forgot.
Well, so on the one hand, I understand how that could hurt you a lot. Certainly come out of it in worse shape than you were going into it, at least for a period of time. But I think they nicked something, right? It wasn't quite the Tyrod Taylor thing, but it was something along those lines. Yeah.
But the point was dude's got to be so muscular. How'd you even get into?
Yeah, but at some point, I mean, they're going in there with a needle and rooting around. At some point, muscles are only so thick, and I mean, whatever. So mine was here on the forearm, right? There's limited things to hit when you're in there. You know what I mean? It's mostly muscle in your forearm. I would imagine, once you're in somewhere like a chest, once you get beyond the muscle, there's other things you could hack at by mistake. So yeah, I mean, I get that.
Well, let me know if that ever recovered. Or, you have to talk up Dr. Vic too. Say it worked. You say it worked.
It's TBD. Today is when he said, I will have an idea of how successful it was or not.
Play a little tennis, see how it feels.
Yeah, the first day coming out of it was pretty rough, but it was definitely improved dramatically yesterday, and then we'll get an idea today, I think, how successful it's been.
All right, man. That was a good show. A lot of fun. We're back to 3 days a week. Today, then 9 a.m. Wednesday, 9 a.m. Thursday. Remember, we'll be at 7 a.m. on Mondays during the season, but not yet.
As of week 1.
I am, as of week 1. You have to be subscribed to the YouTube because we'll go live at any time. We got games this Thursday all the way through Sunday. And we'll go live as the big stuff breaks. Like when last year we went live after Anthony Richardson's first pass, he got absolutely popped. Unblocked rusher. Didn't see the blitz. Got smoked. And people wanted to hear about it because he was in the middle of a QB competition. Yeah. So when that type of stuff happens, we'll be going live right here on YouTube.
And he's now, Rap Sheet was on
He's
TV.
traded. He's going to be traded now.
Well, he was talking about he doesn't know if he's got 100% vision after that elastic band accident that sidelined him. Yeah. He was like, one of the things teams are going to have to answer is how well can he see? Does he have 100%
vision? Can't
vision?
help the accuracy issues.
This is the thing. I tweeted at Hayden Winks this morning. I'm like, there's a joke in there about that being unclear, what his vision status was before he got injured, just based off the way he plays football. But it feels harsh to make it if he's genuinely lost a portion of his vision because an elastic band snapped on him.
It's honestly one of the things I wish I had more information on. There's some quarterbacks who I feel like their accuracy is strictly depth perception and spot throwing that others don't have and ways to calculate that.
Yeah.
I always felt like Tua had a really good feel for that.
The spectrum on human vision is pretty significant, and it's something that probably doesn't get factored in at all to that kind of thing. The difference just between being able to see or not.
In vision's massive. I mean, obviously in a lot of sports, but in baseball, you need good vision to be able to hit a ball. You have 0.4 seconds to see the ball and hit it. But I think it's underrated in quarterbacking.
Sure.
Just think about all the moving parts.
Yeah.
And you're spot throwing. It's not just can I see an eye chart, it's can I see with proper depth perception and then have my body executed. It's really difficult, and I do wonder how much vision comes into accuracy.
The point is, it's hard enough to make those throws even if you work on the basis that everybody is seeing an exact perfect picture in their mind based off their vision, right? Well, now what if you say this guy's picture is 50% fuzzy?
Yeah.
I mean, of course he's going to be less accurate, theoretically, right? Doesn't that make sense?
Maybe it balanced out the other way.
I mean, that was why everyone was so excited that one time Jameis rocked up with LASIK.
Yeah, but that was a...
Turns out that didn't fix him. That's not a data point in that favor.
That was a team color.
But still.
All right. Good show. A lot of fun. Hit subscribe, thumbs up, do all the things. Appreciate everybody for being here. We'll see you again Wednesday. More. Check the mic.